I'd like to call our regular Board of Ed meeting on February 9th, 2022 to order at 7 p.m. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number 2 is we need a motion to approve the agenda. So moved. Okay,
Second.
moved by Missy and seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item number 3 is public comment, which at the beginning of this meeting refers only to items that are on the agenda. Because we have such a lengthy agenda, and there are a number of you out there, I'm not sure how many of you are going to speak, we are really going to have to stick to a very strict 3-minute presentation, and please ask you to speak only once, and if you're not finished, you can send an email to me with the rest of the information or to the rest of the board members, and we'll get that rest of the information. Missy is going to let you know when you have about
1 minute left.
1 minute left, okay? So, that said, is there anyone that would like to speak? Does anyone have any comments that they would like to share with us? Okay, let's start in the back. Would you raise your hand,
Come
please?
to the mic.
I'm gonna have you come up to the mic, please. Yes. Please state your name. I'm gonna ask that you please try to speak as loud as you can. I really have a hard time understanding and hearing people with masks, so. Can't help it.
Good evening, my name is Nicole Arcolani, I'm a Durham resident, and tonight I wanted to address the board on the issue of masking in the schools. I believe that at some point in the near future, it's going to come down to the school board and the district to make that decision locally, and I would ask that the board consider removing the mask mandate in schools. I'm a nurse, I'm an RN, I've been an RN for over 7 years, and I've worked in healthcare for the majority of my lifetime, working on the front lines as the pandemic started. Where we're at now in the pandemic, you can definitely see the progression. It's nowhere near the level of intensity. We know so much more about this disease now than we did when it initially started. The numbers are down in the community as far as spread. The vaccine is available to those who want to take it. And I think at this point, it's time to move on to the next phase in the community and allow the children to have the option to wear the mask if they feel comfortable and if parents choose to do that. But I don't think that it should be a mandatory thing that's implemented among the students. I guess also I'd like to just get a little background from some of the board members. I know specifically I've heard Missy advocate for masks, so I just wanted to know a little bit about their healthcare background and what's driving them to make that decision, and what specifically their involvement with healthcare has been during the pandemic. As I've seen it from the beginning to where we are now, totally different situation than we were in 2 years ago, and I think we've come a long way as a community. I think we've come a long way in healthcare. And we have so many more available treatments now. So I would just ask that the board consider making the mandate optional when that becomes available to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We had another speaker, Carl.
Carl Stout, Durham. I'd just like to repeat a comment I made in one of the last meetings. It's great the public can watch this meeting, but the fact that the public that's watching it cannot make a comment or call in. You really need to do something about that. The towns, the people are paying over 2/3 of their taxes are supporting the school system, and they can't come up here every night with these meetings. The meeting's being put on public. Let's have the public be able to speak. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, my name is Melissa Massaro. I am a Brewster mom. We live in Durham. I had sent an email actually out to the board yesterday. Lucy, you had responded. I appreciate that. My concern is, we had done away with, well, I think what had originally happened was Lyman was slated to close 3 years ago. As we all know, it's not closed. The hot ID program is no longer there. My concern is, the whole point of this was to streamline both Brewster and Lyman, have them be on the same path. If they're on the same path, I don't really understand the logistics of kindergarten through 2nd grade at Brewster and kindergarten through 4th at Lyman. Doesn't really make sense, especially if the hot ID program isn't even an option. There's a big deal going on with buses and lack of transportation, lack of bus drivers getting there on time. You've got buses going from Durham, driving 20 minutes away to Lyman, which I don't really understand what the point of is if Brewster's right in their backyard. It's not like Brewster anymore, it's not like Durham residents are sending their kids to Lyman for the hot ID program. If they're both streamlined and they're both supposed to have the same academics, then why wouldn't we just send your Durham student to Brewster or your Lyman student, your Middlefield student to Lyman? There's all this logistics of it that just doesn't really make sense. I don't really love the fact that my 2nd grader will be going to a middle school next year and will be starting school an hour earlier than Lyman kids. I don't really see how that's fair. I don't really see how, they get an extra 2 years in an elementary school when, what's the difference between a Lyman student and a Brewster student, that they get to actually stay in an elementary school for 5 years as opposed to my student that's only gonna get to stay there for 3. So, I don't know. I know that there was talk when I got an email back from Lucy yesterday that COVID obviously put a halt on a lot of the logistics to all of this. But, as it was mentioned, we're getting out of that now. So what's the plan? If the hot ID program's no longer there, what's the plan? Should Lyman students also start Memorial at 3rd grade if we're gonna streamline and make it fair for everybody across the board? I just would like to get some answers on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Lucy, can we just also address, I'm not sure if this is appropriate during this time too, but for the community that you respond for us, like I'm in agreement with the past speaker, but you respond for the board. It's not that the board did not respond. I just want to make
No,
that.
I
Okay,
appreciate
because
you
I
saying
say-
that. No, I didn't expect to get 12 emails
We're
back.
just not, yeah.
Not
but
at all.
I
and
appreciate your
you saying
email, but I
that.
just want to make sure that it's understood.
And I
to
didn't
the-
want to miss anybody in the emails either, so that's why I wanted to be all
Okay.
inclusive.
I just want to make that clear.
No,
Okay.
absolutely, and thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so, and I'll just reiterate, we do have a policy that the chair responds to the emails. If a board member responds, if they only receive the email, it gets sent to the chair, and the chair responds, and they might just say, oh, I forwarded your email too. This way we have a consistency of responses.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So I am responding,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
to support,
Thanks for clarifying.
to
Yep.
support the board. Okay, is there anyone else that wanted to speak? Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3 is Teacher of the Year, Introduction and Recognition. I'm sorry, item number 4.
Yes, so if it's okay, I'm gonna ask Corey and Jen to do this introduction because they did it so well at convocation. I will give them the floor.
We are proud to announce our Regional School District 13's Teacher of the Year, Kristin Allen, who is nominated by Chris Davis and fully endorsed by staff and administration from our schools. Kristin has influenced our teaching and learning at all grade levels, from pre-K through Cogachog Regional High School. She has also influenced other teachers and educators from around the state. As an Orton-Gillingham trainer, she has provided and continues to provide professional learning to our reading interventionists, our special education teachers, and some of our tutors. And I believe even a couple of parents in our district. She has also provided our K-2 teachers with professional learning in the science of reading and structured literacy. These professional learning experiences have expanded to touch the lives of teachers across the state. Her commitment to the profession and our learners extends to supporting legislation in the area of reading, as well as her role as president of the International Dyslexia Association of Connecticut. Kristin often quotes Maya Angelou: "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Kristin is always doing better and encouraging us to do better for our learners, staff, and the community. Now I'll turn it over to Jen.
Just go down. All right. That's all right.
Just
Okay. I
stool.
do have a loud enough voice. Kristin is a consummate professional who has dedicated herself to professional excellence, lifelong learning, and sharing her wealth of knowledge with all of those around her. Kristin is a superior special education teacher. She's an avid advocate for student rights and educational improvements. She works tirelessly educating students, staff, and the community to promote best practice teaching methods, especially in the area of reading. On top of her superior educational, professional, and technical abilities, Kristin embodies the intrinsic qualities that make an educator truly outstanding. Kristin is passionate about learning and teaching. Her enthusiasm is contagious. Her colleagues are energized by her, and her students are truly engaged and connected to her. It is with genuine pleasure that I introduce to the Board of Education our Teacher of the Year, Kristin Allen.
Okay. Thank you for this recognition. We have incredible educators here in RSD13. And to be elected as a Teacher of the Year for the district and semi-finalist for the state is truly an unbelievable honor. Sorry, didn't think I was gonna get emotional. I read this several times. I grew up wanting to be a teacher, so for me, this nomination, as silly as it sounds, is like a dream come true. On top of that, to be part of a district who has supported me and taken the lead in embracing a more effective way of teaching reading for all of our learners has been remarkable and something everyone in this room should be proud of. During convocation, I neglected to thank some pretty important people in my life who I know are watching today. So I just wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to my family. My parents, my husband and 2 children, my brother and his family, and my in-laws. They all mean the world to me, and I wouldn't be where I am today without their unconditional love and support. Now, for those of you who do not know much about me, I think others would say that I keep myself pretty busy. In fact, I'm often asked how I do it all. Between my job, or jobs here in district, IDA president, member of the ECC, tutor, farmer, wife, and mother, I never really know how to respond. However, when I am asked why I do what I do, the answer comes out much more easily. I do it for the learners. For as long as I've been teaching, the learners have always been my #1 priority, whether I'm directly or indirectly working with them. They are the source of my inspiration, and while obviously teaching content is an important part of being an educator, I truly believe it is not what the learners remember most. What they remember most is when someone connected with them, made them feel special, or taught them lessons that would carry them through life, as my first grade teacher did for me, and ultimately was the reason I decided I wanted to be a teacher. Thus, more so than ever, I think we all need to remind ourselves that despite all the stress and feelings of being overwhelmed with all of the changes that are occurring within our school system, that we should step back, take a deep breath, and remember, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And really, everyone in this room, in the community, and in our schools need to make our top priority ensuring our learners feel supported and inspired. Thank you. I hope we continue to have a safe and fulfilling remainder of the school year.
Congratulations and thank you so much. You absolutely personify what a teacher is and what teaching is all about. And don't ever forget that there are a lot of lives that you are touching that you don't even realize. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else? Okay, item number 5 is our high school reporters, Nora, Logan, and Rebecca.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nora O'Connell, and I will be giving you a quick general update on Coggeshag. So the related arts fair for the 8th graders went well on January 26th. The chamber choir and jazz combo performed in various clubs such as robotics and Ocean Bowl shared about their clubs. The feedback we heard from the 8th graders was overwhelmingly positive. Course registration is beginning soon for grades 9 through 11 at the high school. French Honor Society is looking to do a Valentine's Day Spirit Day. Go to Carmine's in Durham on February 23rd from 5 to 8 p.m. to support the CRHS tennis teams. The senior trip to DC is in 6 weeks. Mr. Coggins, hosted by DECA, will be on March 17th. Ocean Bowl won their last competition and will be heading to the Nationals competition, which happened for the first time in like a decade. Spanish Honor Society is doing a food drive for St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank in Middletown on February 8th until the end of February. Feel free to drop off non-perishable goods and low-sugar cereals to the office to contribute. And Model UN went to Boston this past weekend with Ellie Castiglia and Zach Infeld, both seniors, taking home awards. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Okay, I have a lot to say. There's a lot. So I'll start with basketball. So the boys team has had a rough season. They are currently 2-12, although they have a game tonight, a pink-out game versus North Branford, and they are expected to win that. Jason Penny and Sam Whittle, a junior and a senior, have led the team points-wise. However, Sam Whittle says that no player particularly is better than the rest. It just depends on how each player performs each game. And then they have senior night this Friday. Girls basketball has had a pretty good season, and they are currently at 7 wins and 8 losses. They started out strong, going 5-1 until sadly they went on a 7-game losing streak, but they rebounded this past Monday during their pink-out game, winning against Hale-Ray in a 54-23 game. And last Friday, they honored senior Alyssa Woodward at the team's senior night game. And Mia Paterniki has continued to lead the game as a top player in the conference.
Nice.
The boys hockey team has recently won their first game against the Conrad Hall co-op team in a 3-1 game. Max Sirocco managed to block several near goals from the opposing team. Girls hockey won its first game against Hamden 5-0 or 5-1 a few weeks ago. And although the team has had a rough season, senior Midori Wheatley states that there is a lot of spirit and camaraderie for the co-op with Daniel Hand. The Lyman Hall Coggins Swimming and Diving co-op team has done very well over the past month, currently sitting with 4 wins and 3 losses. Boys indoor track scored 115 points to win the Shorelines Conference Championship this past weekend, beating out projected winner HK by 2 points. Multiple athletes received the first team all-conference awards, then being senior Will Dallas, who won the 600-meter event by over 3 seconds, and then the 4x4 team that won and brought home the victory. And it consisted of senior Jason Adams, senior Elliot Hastings, senior Leo DeLeon, and it was anchored by junior Alex Meisenkoth. There were also multiple second-team all-conference awards, that being Gage Ravelli, who placed second in long jump and high jump, and qualified for states in both events, and the 4x8 team that got second, barely beating out Portland's team by 100th of a second. That team consisted of senior Jack Husher, Leo DeLeon, Will Dallas, and myself. Many athletes had stellar performances, which led to the team's first victory since 2007. And to put that in perspective, I was 4 years old, and I'm so it's been a few years. And the Class S states meet will be this Saturday, where all relays are projected to score in the top 5, and Will Dallas is seeded to win the 600 meters. The SMR team is once again looking at a qualifying spot at Nationals, with them being 0.1 seconds off the required time, and being ranked 7th in the entire state.
Where does that meet?
It's going to be at Hill House.
Hill House, okay.
The girls indoor track team placed 4th at Shorelines with 77 points scored. Sophomore Allison Vigu broke her own school record once again, pole vaulting 10'3", and winning her event. Junior Elizabeth Sorensen placed 2nd in shot put, and sophomore Grace Harkins placed 2nd in the 55 dash, earning them both second team all-conference awards. The girls team is also projected to do very well at the meet on Saturday. And that is all.
Do you know what the score is of the game that's going on now?
JV just won.
John.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find that, but they just started at 7.
All right,
so.
knew somebody would find it. Thank you, great, great. And congratulations. Congratulations, Grandpa.
I'm slightly smaller than yours. Hello, I'm Rebecca Tobin, and I'm going to be talking about the music department. The music department is back up and running after a while of not being able to do shows or concerts, so that's really exciting. Like Nora talked about, the related arts fair that went really well. The chamber choir sang, and the jazz combo performed towards the beginning, which was really awesome. They got to see some of that in action. We are currently in rehearsals for our musical, Emma, the pop musical. We have rehearsals 3 times a night for actors, and the pit band has gotten their music, and they're starting now. Regionals happened this past weekend, which is a music festival. We have many students who auditioned. Most of these students were accepted, and some of them performed. They are Christine Waterman, myself, Morgan Messner, Madalena DiPantima, Catherine Taylor, Kayla Kearns, Holly Brunel, Henry Madison, Zach Infeld, Anika Liss, and Rachel Hayward. And Holly Brunel actually got the highest score among CRHS students. And we also, my phone may have died. My brother likes to use it too. We also, Thursday the 17th, the jazz combo is performing at Perk on Main from 6:30 to 8:30 in honor of Black History Month. We're starting out small, but he hopes to grow it over the next couple years, so that's a really exciting event if you're able to make that. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, thank you. Item number 6 is a vote to approve textbooks. I believe we have Rachel.
I'd like to introduce Rachel Mann, who's going to talk to you about the anatomy and the physiology book that we'd like you to approve.
Here it is, isn't it pretty? Is it just me, or is there something special about a brand new science textbook? So I'm Rachel Mann. I teach science at the high school, and one of my courses is anatomy and physiology. And I'm asking to have this textbook approved for a few reasons. I'm revising the curriculum currently so that it is more engaging to every learner by providing more authentic experiences where they can apply their knowledge of the human body to case studies, individualized projects, and exploration of careers in healthcare. So this textbook, The Whole's Essentials of Human Anatomy, which is a high school edition, published by McGraw-Hill, it's a perfect complement to the toolbox of resources that I'll need to accomplish this goal. Here are some reasons why. First of all, the units integrate body systems that are actually grouped by function, and this aligns perfectly with the plan I have for the curriculum, which is to, rather than covering body systems individually, we're covering them in a thematic way. So, for example, in a unit called Support and Motion, we'll cover the skeletal, muscular, and integumentary systems to show how these systems interact to allow for support and motion of the human body. Another reason that I'd like this textbook is because it integrates the next generation science standards perfectly, focusing on the cross-cutting concepts and the science and engineering practices, which are standard through all of our science curriculum. In addition, it provides for some case study examples, and this will allow me to use phenomenon-based unit introductions as well as assessments also. It also has career connections, so students can read about different careers in healthcare and other ways that they could use the knowledge that they're getting. The organization and layout of the textbook is ideal. It's very appropriate for high school students, and this is important because I'd like to make the course available to more students, and to do that, I'm eliminating the chemistry prerequisite, but this textbook has a really great introductory chapter that provides the chemistry background that they'll need for the course. And in general, the text is more accessible overall than the one I have. There's also an online version, so the print text can actually stay in the classroom,
and students can have access to the online text at home. That will prolong the life of the text, I hope. I do believe there's a lot of value in providing the students with a print copy sometimes, and also with the online copy. My favorite part is something called Anatomy and Physiology Revealed, which is a 3D modeling virtual dissection tool that will enhance the visual learning and also complement the hands-on dissections that we do in the classroom. It'll also give students who don't care to participate in the actual dissections an experience and be able to participate in that, even if they don't really want to participate in the live dissection. And finally, it comes with a lab manual that includes 34 hands-on labs that will just correlate nicely with the units that are here. So again, it's a complement to the curriculum. It's not the curriculum, but it is a good tool that I'd like to use. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
What level classes take your class?
11th and 12th grade. So currently I have mostly 12th graders, but I really would like to see more 11th graders take it. I only have one
And
right
is it
now.
elective?
It is an elective,
Okay.
yes.
And how many are you requesting?
24
So would that be for one class?
for one section, yes. Mhm.
Any prerequisites on that one? I know you said that you eliminated the chemistry one, but.
Biology.
Just bio.
Just bio. Mhm.
Hi, you mentioned the online component. Are the chapters divided in PDF format, so you could say, I'm gonna assign you chapter 3, or is it you have to scroll through 729 pages to get to that page? That's always been an issue with me as a teacher. I've got to the point where I've just created my own PDF chapters. Is it
Right.
easy for you to use and to?
I found it to be very easy to use.
Yeah.
Yep, and you could actually click on chapters, it will
Yes,
take you directly.
that's great. Not all of them do that, but that's
Yes,
wonderful.
this does. Mhm.
Any other questions?
Is the online version is it a licensing thing? At the end of the time, you no longer have access to that?
This would, I'd have 6 years access to the online component. Any other questions?
Do we know
Thank you.
do we need to know
We
how
need
many
to
costs?
need a vote.
Yes,
We
I know.
would like a
need
vote, yes.
So we,
Do you, I'll make
Do
a
we have a
motion.
cost?
Do we have that cost in there?
Yep.
You can just.
You just wanna, okay.
So for 24 books, so this includes the student printed edition, online access for 6 years, the Anatomy and Physiology Revealed for also 6 years, free teacher manual, free lab manual, 24 copies would be $4,019.76.
And we have the money in the budget right now,
That
so
was
we're
my
not
next
asking for
question.
additional
Yeah.
money. Yeah, it's in the budget.
What section of the budget it comes out of?
Science textbooks.
Science textbooks.
count books. Okay.
so we need a motion to approve the anatomy. Does it have a specific name? Be nice to put the whole name.
Hole's Essentials of Human Anatomy and Physiology, McGraw-Hill.
I'll make a
Okay,
motion.
to approve.
I'll make a motion
that
to
one.
approve it.
So we have a motion by John,
Second.
second by Lindsay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good.
Thank you so
Good luck.
much.
Thank
Good luck, sounds very
Thanks, Phil.
exciting. Okay, item number 7 is approval of minutes. I would just like to ask if no one has any amendments, there are 4 sets of minutes here. If no one has any amendments, I would like to entertain a motion to approve all 4 of the minutes in one motion. Let me ask the question first. Does anyone have any amendments to any of the minutes? No? Okay, so
I
then.
just have a question about A. Like, what part was revised? Do we even know? 'Cause
I don't remember, I think there was something with it that wasn't right, and it was fixed. It had already been filed, so it had to be corrected.
I believe the date
But I
was wrong,
can't
or
remember,
the-
it was
it was
something
like
was
a-
wrong.
I think it was to do with the vote for chair, where I was listed as voting twice.
Oh, is
Or
that-
I voted for Lindsay twice.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
did not, Lindsay
It was
then.
corrected,
Okay.
yeah, it was
I
corrected.
didn't, okay, I just wasn't clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we
So
needed,
moved to approve, the minutes of December 15th, 2021, January 5th, 2022, special meeting, January 5th, 2022, and regular meeting retreat, January 22.
okay, so we have a motion by Missy, seconded by,
Second.
by Jason? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Since I wasn't on the board, I'm gonna abstain.
So you have one abstention, right, by Rebecca. Okay. Makes sense. Our next board meeting that we have scheduled is February 23rd at 7 p.m. And we're going to go to committee reports for the Wellbeing Committee. Bob?
Wellbeing Committee met, had quite a few people there. I think the basic issue was the teachers and staff, teachers and students really talked about their stress, their concerns with beating COVID or getting an exam test, and they were conflicted sometimes about trying to go to school and trying to study with COVID. They felt some needed acceptance and recognition and affirmation that they were doing a good job from the teachers. Both students and teachers felt they needed time and time to break, time to talk. That was one item. The other item was on the social media stuff that started at the beginning of the year with TikTok and other bullying, and felt that Cheryl Gonzalez had really dealt with it straight on, and it seems to have slowed down anyway. And we had a good discussion about the importance of that and a place where we could get help if anybody needed help on that. We also talked, Matt gave a summary, Matt Warner gave a summary of where we are in high school and how his first 3 months have been. So that's basically the summary.
Good. Thank you. Next item of agenda, our agenda is communications, and I have a few emails that I had received. I had an email from Nicole Ercolani, which was dated January 13th, requesting copies of emails referred to at the January 12th meeting, and I believe I referred that to Doug to pull those together. I had an email that was forwarded from Lindsay from Caitlin Brady that was dated January 19th, questioning about the 2022-2023 calendar, when it would be discussed by the board, and I emailed her the information because we had just discussed it. Item number, another email forwarded from Lindsay from Brandon Jubry of Connecticut Flag Football, dated January 20th, requesting to distribute an informational flyer in the Regional School District 13 school system for their upcoming spring season in Portland. And I forwarded that email to Doug as well as to Todd, our athletic director. An email from Heidi Pizzo dated January 26th expressing concern regarding lack of communication from our superintendent. I responded to Heidi and forwarded the email to Doug. Received an email from Nora O'Connell dated January 29th about appointing new students to the Wellbeing Committee, and I emailed her, and those students attended our Wellbeing Committee meeting and were accepted. Had an email from Phil Auger dated February 4th questioning why the school was closed that day, and I emailed him back. I did not give him the weather report, but I did get into it a little bit. Had an email from Melissa Massaro, who spoke today, dated February 8th, expressing her concerns about the ongoing issues regarding the 2 elementary schools in the district, why one school keeps students for 3 years, while the other keeps students for 5 years, lack of transparency, and requesting if the district can move the 3rd grade back to Brewster, since Lyman will not be closing anymore, and I responded back to her. And my last email was from Maya Perry List, dated February 9th, expressing concerns over the masking policy, and that was forwarded to all the board members. I did not respond yet, and I believe I received another email as well about masking, but I don't have it on here because it came later. Did anyone else receive any communication?
I got an email from Danya Viola asking about outside food for students and faculty, and I forwarded that to Lucy.
Yep, and I responded to her. Yep. I believe she's also going to be meeting with our superintendent as well. Anyone else?
The only other one I haven't sent to you was from today. Leslie Paoletti, who I serve on the EDI committee with, she wanted us to look at whether she was on well-being or not. I don't know if more, because I looked through it. I believe she's a
She was a special guest, I think,
From EDI,
for a
right?
couple meetings, yeah.
So she just wants some
last year.
clarification on whether she was on the committee or if she was not on the committee, that she just get notified.
Bob's the chair now, so. no problem.
Well, I know,
No, don't look at me.
I can't look in both directions. But I'll forward it to Lucy if she can send it on. I
Okay.
just got it like in a couple hours ago.
Thank you.
I spoke at length with Middlefield resident Alma Elder, who needed a bit of clarity as much as I could provide on this referendum that just was last night. It was confusing to a lot of people, what and why.
Anyone else? Okay, item number 11, the John Lyman referendum results from February 8th, which was yesterday. I will go over the numbers for the referendum. Middlefield, we had 194 yeses and 187 noes. Durham had 99 yes, this to approve the bonding, and 763 noes. So that gave us a total of 293 yeses and 950 noes. Obviously, the referendum did not pass. We are presently in a dilemma. At this time, the board has no power to close Lyman School or to maintain the school. So therefore, we have to look at options going forward. And in the past, the board, Doug and I, we've discussed this situation. We've talked about some possible options, and at this time, I'm gonna have Doug summarize what some of those options might be.
Yes, so, as I told the chamber this morning, it's hard for me to stand in front of any group of citizens, including here, and relay what Lucy just said, that there could possibly be a kind of legal framework that prohibits a Board of Education from closing a school and also prohibits it from maintaining the school. And so, you know, I kind of feel like, if you've heard that expression, the elephant in the room, I kind of feel like there's three in the room tonight. This one, our budget, and the whole governor's announcement on the mask mandate. So we'll get to all of them, but let's start with this one because that's how it's in the agenda, right? Okay. So in no particular order, let me just tell you what I believe are 5 options that the board has in front of it at this juncture. There may be others. There's only 5 that I can really come up with. One would be to address the maintenance issues, capital maintenance issues at Lyman through the budget that we're about to present. Basically, add funds to that budget to do some or all of what wasn't approved in the $7.5 million. Again, not advocating for that, and spoiler alert, it's not in my budget, and so and I can get into that at some point if you guys want to know why. But just that's option 1, okay? Option 2 would be to put it out for bonding again, presumably at a lower dollar amount. You know, the thought process being maybe that's why it failed. At 7.5, maybe go back and revisit at a lower number, talk about what wouldn't be done, and see what the results of that could be. Conversely, we could also go back to the same referendum that was tried and didn't pass back in November. I don't want to revisit those results, but there's kind of a mirror thing going on here a little bit. And you may or may not wish to do that. Again, that would, I think, be the 3rd time that would have been attempted over the last several years. The other 2 items, you know, I can't get the specifics, but for those that were on the board or tuning into the board meeting back in November when our attorney spoke to us about this exact scenario, he threw out 2 terms. One would be to seek legislative relief, and the other would be to seek judicial relief. And you know, in kind of just short snippets, legislative relief would be appealing to the state legislature for potential action if they were so inclined to do that, and if they were empowered to do that. And judicial relief would be taking a particular action, closing the school, and hoping that any potential lawsuits we would prevail in, because really the board doesn't have a whole lot of options here. And so, you know, my intent is to explore all 5 of these, and especially the last 2, and I don't have anything specific to share tonight, but I guess if you all don't want me to do that, then I'm not gonna do it, because it wouldn't be insignificant effort, and I don't wanna get people's hopes up or down, depending on how they want this thing to go. But I do believe, and I think Lucy and I are of the same mind of this in our discussions, and maybe others of you as well, that we're at the point where we need to explore all the options, because again, Laura Francis, first selectman in Durham, many of you know, she was at the chamber meeting this morning, and one of the things she pointed out to that group is that this inability for a Board of Ed to close a school is unique to regional school districts. And you know, not to put words into her mouth, but you know, I think she framed it nicely to say, this is a scenario that she doesn't believe the framers of the regional school district statutes ever really considered all those years ago when that was framed. And so I really do believe that we need to explore all options. And I know in saying that, some people are gonna like that we're exploring those options, and some are not gonna like it because of what it could eventually do in an outcome. So I guess, does anyone have an issue with me exploring those? And I will keep Lucy in the loop, and you all, you know, and in future meetings or through emails or whatever, of where we're kind of going in that regard.
Can we get just some feedback from all of you, how you feel about it? If you would like Doug to continue to explore the options, you can just go around, just so we get it on the record.
Yeah, we just truly need to know every option, and we need to express it, every scenario and situation, and really be open about it. And
So number 4 and 5, you would consult our attorney?
I would.
Yeah, I think it needs to be done. I mean, you know, in my opinion, if you voted that you wanted to keep Lyman open, then you should have voted yes to the number yesterday.
Agreed.
Because that's just what needs to get done. And I don't know that that was understood, and we weren't. I'll just put it on the record again. We could not, on the referendum in November, we could not say, if you vote to keep it open, or if you vote to close it, that it's gonna cost this much money. We were not allowed to do that. And so I don't think that people understand that, no matter how many times we say it. But we're really stuck in a rock and a hard place right now. And this is taking up a lot of time that we could be spending on something else, and money that we could be spending on something else, but we just can't.
And there's a lot of families, such as Melissa said too, there's a lot of families that would like to know what, this all hinges on what are we doing with the elementary school kids, you know, like, we can't keep it in limbo. We have to get to the bottom of what we can do, so that we can decide, are we having 2 elementary schools, are we having 1? If we're having 2, we're gonna, how do we make it a K through 4 and make it an even experience for every child in this district as fast as we can? And I think that that's definitely all the options we can have. Doug, I agree that we should seek out something.
I think you need to pursue all 5. I think there will be some that come out as you pursue them as smaller options. But I think as Maura said, in the meantime, we have to make a decision what we're gonna do with the school shortly, for next year. And the issues are, you know, people still think it's a hot school and it's doing these things, but we have to, you know, we voted 2.5 years ago to have a single program. Reimagining education is gonna have a single program district-wide. We have to make sure that people understand that, and whether or not we turn this into a neighborhood school, you know, with equal distribution between classes, if that's possible. Those things are gonna have to go on in addition to the 5 things that you're gonna investigate. I mean, we probably have enough money to cover something that breaks.
Maybe.
Maybe,
Yeah.
depends on what breaks, but, you know, those things have to be looked at as well.
Jason? Oh, sorry, Becca?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at the risk of sounding like adding more work to it, I think with there being a lot of new board members and people being confused, maybe we can look at, Lucy, Doug, like how we would have a small work session or something where the history, a short version of the history, and to bring us to where we are. I actually, because I'm a total geek, went back and read everything, utilization starting in 2014 when that board was doing this. And then to Bob's point, at a January meeting 2019, that is what came up from Bob, was that what the real issue, what we're hearing from the public, was more about the programming, that we have to decide where people are gonna be, but people were more concerned about that piece than necessarily at that moment what the configuration was gonna be. And you would put a configuration forward, but that's what they were hearing from the public, was that had to get resolved. And I know, as Jamie said, talking to people, I had a lot of questions before I got elected directed to me about what does this mean. And I said, well, a lot of this is, I think we need to just get a quick history of where we got to, what the facts are. If we can all agree on the facts, or at least have some understanding of them, then we can communicate better with the public, and this board can make its decision and put its stamp on what we're gonna do going forward. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think we have so many families that have moved here since, I mean, it was the natural next step after Corn closed from what I go back and look at. So you think about that, like, I wasn't here when Corn closed. We weren't in the district, we were in Middletown. So even though, like we said, every step along the way, I really think I like what Becca's saying, like, we should go back and really give an intro. It's like we read chapters of a book all the time, but we don't give the intro that you see on like, take Netflix, you know, go back to the retreat. You can skip the intro if you already know it, but it's nice to have the intro of the show when you first watch it. So and I think Lucy had said this too, we had talked about it at one point, to really lay out the facts of everything, where everything's gone and where everything's happened, and throw it out on the table and say, listen, this is everything, this is where we've been, this is where we wanna go, these are the directions we can go.
Right, I think first we need to resolve what we're going to be able to do with Lyman, and that's the discussion we're having right now. Yes, it's been, this whole issue's been out there for such a long time that the information is just all connected together, and we don't know what exactly is and what isn't. So I'd just like to go around and just ask you, how do you feel about supporting exploration of the options that we have at this point in time going forward to determine what's gonna happen with Lyman School, which then is going to determine what goes on beyond that in terms of grade configurations and stuff like that. So, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it, because even if you go back to number 2, bonding again, another dollar amount, we went through it. You pretty much need all that money. If not, you're gonna need to go back to bonding another 2 years down the road. So, like Doug said, primarily 4 and 5.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if you bring another bonding referendum, it's gonna get shut down again. Most of Durham wanted to close the school. They're not gonna vote to allocate money to it, so I'm okay with looking at 4 and 5, mostly.
John?
I agree with both of them. I said since the beginning, we need to concentrate on 4 schools and making them state-of-the-art. Now, I know people don't wanna hear that John Lyman should be closed, but I totally believe we should redistrict, do what we need to do to get 4 schools that are state-of-the-art. That's my opinion.
I think looking at all 5 of them with the emphasis on looking for change, and just would encourage you to really challenge our attorneys, who are very good about some of the conclusions that we have been told before about not having 2 pieces of the puzzle included, because in many districts what they do, one of those questions is actually an advisory answer and the other one is binding. So you couldn't have both of those be binding in a district, but one of those questions could have been asked at the same time, so that all the picture was there. I'm not saying that would change the outcome. I'm just saying, like, I love those guys, I worked with them a lot, but they work for us, so let's tell them how we want it to come out and see if they can make it come out that way.
We did ask that though. We did,
Yeah,
that was
we did.
our main thing, just to give the history.
Okay.
There were many discussions about that, because most of us who are still left here on the board that were part of this wanted that, because we felt it was more clarifying for the public when they went to vote. Especially people who weren't following along and just hear things like, oh, I gotta vote tonight, what am I voting for again? Like, at least you could read it and see what you're voting for and what the ramifications would be for your decision.
Well, Missy hit it on the head, though. You can't say that you don't wanna fund something and wanna keep the school open at the same time.
That's exactly what
So
happened.
that is just,
Right.
that's exactly what
That's
happened. We
why
knew
we're
that this
where
was
we
gonna
are.
happen. We need to move forward. We need to make a decision. It's fiscally responsible of us that we need to do this, and we need to do it quickly before next year. That's just my opinion.
And to go with what you're saying too, and this was my question, is what are we looking at as a time frame? Because we know we've been talking about this for a long time, and then we had COVID, we did have reasons why we had to completely halt. But when we're saying that we need, and I agree with you, that we need to have an information night or an information discussion where we can go back to the history, but to me, all that does, I'm hearing in my mind, having been part of this for so long, it's just gonna it's gonna hold us back even more, because now we have to, when are we gonna do this? When are we
No, I
gonna
just
have
meant
it?
us as a board.
But when?
But to answer your question about the pace
Yeah, I
of
mean,
this,
Bob has it.
if you're
Right,
okay
so
with
maybe we can just share that
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
meeting about it.
The only reason why I agree with that is because I was still told yesterday that we're still running the ID program.
Of course, of course.
So,
From
that,
who?
that,
So maybe it could be
Facebook,
something
what
that's
is
just a
No.
publication that
barely-
could come
I'm
out, and
barely
not
around.
just the meeting as
Right.
well.
And I think we can
but it's
kind
one of those
of
things,
rehash
people
this
keep bringing
up
up, it's like, no, it hasn't
afterwards.
been.
Okay, because I
This
just
year
wanna
that-
move forward
But
with.
more
I
to
just
your
wanted
point,
Right.
if all of you are okay with this, which it sounds like you are, I'm gonna move as fast as I can move.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and Jamie,
perfect.
Jamie
yeah.
was the last one to,
Because, I mean, ideally, and I know hearing the public, and I myself have an incoming kindergartner too, which I still can't believe, but I'd like to know, am I K through 2 or am I K through 4? And I agree with what Michelle's saying, like, why would I taught at Brewster for 10 years, all my other kids went to Brewster, but why would I pick Brewster right now when she would only go K through 2, when right now it's K through 4? So, and I know I'm not, I mean, there's many others, not just me, obviously, but I think we need to have decisions made, and it has to be in place for this coming school year.
But
The
here's
whole
the
plan,
thing, we
just can't
cannot
keep it.
close Lyman, like, cause I don't want people to freak out. There's no way that Lyman can be closed after this year, because we don't have enough room for the kids.
Right,
So despite the fact that Lyman should close, it can't close for at least probably 1 to 2 years, because
We haven't even done a
we
study.
still need to build on to Brewster if Lyman's going to close, which I just wanna make sure everybody understands that.
Right.
And the reason that we didn't run into this predicament when they closed Corn, and that was before I was on the board, is because they did not go out to bond. It was when we went out to bond that the bond council said, you can't do this. And that's because of a Bridgewater case, also in Connecticut, where it was a regional district and they closed the school and people sued them. And we're trying not to get sued here. So, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to do what's best for the kids, and like, I totally understand what you're saying. My 5th grader is only in Memorial for 1 year, and that's disruptive. So no matter what, it's disruptive to unfortunately all of the kids. So, I mean, I think we do have some, things to do, but until we know the ultimate plan, we can't reconfigure everything.
Right.
Because it doesn't make sense to leave Lyman half full if we're pulling all of the 3rd and 4th graders to Memorial. Whereas ultimately, would it be better for them to be there for 3 years? Probably, but there's so many moving pieces to this, and I think, yes, people moved in and didn't realize what was going on. I've lived here since 2004, and I've been on the board, and sometimes I still feel like I don't know what's going on.
I know.
So,
It's been going on for a long
It's
time,
just a
and there's
lot.
just so many pieces to it, and Jamie, we'll get your.
I concur with John, having 4 of the best schools that we can afford, in the interest of equity as well, not in the interest of the student also, but having 5 watered-down schools potentially that we can afford, or 5 schools that we can make the best we can that we cannot afford, to me, the choice is clear. I like the idea of having, yes, another vote in September that will coincide with the gubernatorial election, to have the greatest participation that will most represent both towns. That's when we're gonna get the most votes and.
you mean November?
Yeah.
Yes,
You said
sorry,
September.
November, yes.
Okay, I was like, wait a
And,
minute.
and you're supporting the
That was the
exploration
last
of the
option, was that
options.
not? Yeah.
Okay, I think you have a pretty unanimous, I
Very
obviously
good.
support
Yes.
us exploring the options.
Thank you,
do.
Doug.
It's, as you can see, it's quite a discussion. Okay, item number 12 is fiscal year 2022-2023 budget proposal.
All right, I'm just waiting for.
It takes a good minute to.
Okay, that's nothing I did wrong. 'Cause that doesn't happen a lot.
Kim did send us this invitation. I thought you
You're
wanted
gonna
to-
fit right in.
Well, while we're waiting for that to come on, I mean, I can hear the frustration in the board members right now, and I feel your frustration. I can imagine how parents are feeling because they're even in more limbo than we are because they haven't been part of, some of them have not been part of the discussions that we've had over the last, how many years has this been going on? And the changes and, you know, new people moving in, so.
But that's what it affects. It
Their
affects people that
frustration
we
level
want to move here as
and
well,
level
too,
of
and not knowing
information
that.
is like, yeah, we have some things to do with this, with regard to this.
Okay, so,
All right.
without assistance, I was able to start this thing, so
All right,
there's
you're on.
that. So, I want to start by giving credit where credit is due, and she wouldn't ask for it, but Kim does amazing work with so many things, and with the budget.
Yes, we
I
agree.
get. You may not clap so much when you see the numbers, but anyway.
That's all you guys.
Take it while you can, Ken, take it while you can.
So, you know, we kind of titled this Navigating to a Brighter Future, and really that came from, if any of you watched the video that I sent on New Year's Day, I happened to be up on the trails in Durham, and it was really foggy that day, and that's really how I kind of felt about mostly the COVID piece, but really we just talked about something that we're still kind of in the fog on, and so that's kind of the theme we're going to work through this presentation, and so as we talk about a brighter future, and again, some of you don't know me that well, I am a glass half full type person, and so with that kind of bias revealed, I do believe there's a brighter future ahead and that we're going to pull out of this fog, and so here are some of the things that I'm like putting in my little bucket of brighter future. The first thing is I do believe the pandemic is not going away, but it is going to be less of a pressure on all of us. I just think it kind of has to be, and of course we have another issue to talk about later on that, but that's, again, I don't have a crystal ball on that, but that's what I think. But we're going to transition out of a pandemic. We also have a new board. I mean, there are 5 of you here, if I've done my math correctly, that were kind of not with us on the board a year ago when we did this presentation. And, in addition to that, again, if the math is wrong, you all correct me, but I think like 4 of you are up for your seats like in May. So there might even be more change, okay? So there's a lot of transition. I'm still relatively new. I know I can't say that forever, but I am. And even newer than me is the leadership at the high school with Matt and Katie and with Cheryl at the middle school. And so that's out there. The facility planning, I think we just beat that to death. Really what that is, translation, we need to know what we're doing with Lymon and the rest of the district. And then, alongside of all this, we're trying to reimagine a better way to do education here in RSD13. And that's all happening in the background of all of this. So even though tonight we present the 1-year budget, because that's what we kind of do, I think it's important to frame the next 2 years. And hopefully that will make this year's budget proposal make sense. And so we don't see a whole lot changing next school year in terms of what we're doing educationally, programming, grade level configurations, all of it. I hear folks loud and clear about the grade level configuration is not what it needs to be, and I agree. But to some of the points that were just made, until we kind of know what's happening with the campuses, I think it would be more disruptive to change something next year and then have to change it the next year after that. Plus, kind of back to the reimagining piece, there is a lot of planning going on with that. And I'm not saying it's all going to be done by this time next year, but I think that's kind of a goal that we're going to set for ourselves to whatever future we're going to move to, that at least we start in some significant way taking steps towards that in the 2023-24 school year. I also think that's the year that we revise the age and grade configurations. I don't want to get into that tonight because it has nothing to do with this year's budget, but I think we need to do it, and those things need to walk alongside. And then the other piece of that is, I mentioned in the first bullet, maintaining current educational programming. We're also maintaining staff in this budget proposal. And, you know, at the retreat for the board members and those that were there, I know most of you weren't, you know, we talked about the fact that over time, we've had this declining enrollment, and we have also had some decline in staff, but the two don't really match. And I think we need to seriously take a look at how we staff, and that's going to be a hard discussion, because at the end of it, what's going to come out likely is that we're not going to need as much staff as we have right now. But if you've ever done budgeting at a school district before, and Kim will tell you, it's typically 75 to 80% of your budget is staff. So if you want to reduce a budget, you have to look at staffing. And if your enrollment is declining, you have to make those hard decisions. But the reason I'm going to argue for, and hopefully people will agree with me, that this isn't the year to try that is, one, we're kind of reimagining the future. Two, we don't know how many buildings we're going to be in. And honestly, if Lymon were to close, some of that staffing would automatically just take place as a result of that. But also going back to what I said before, we've got a new board, and these new administrators who are awesome at the middle school and the high school, in my opinion. You may disagree. I think they're awesome. They've not even been here 6 months at this point. And so for us to go to them and say, we want you to reduce your staff by X, Y, and Z, and whatever, again, I think all of us would do that if we had to, and I've told them that. But they have really asked for time. And so, you know, that's kind of the way that I'm processing this, that Kim is processing this, and that we're presenting this evening. So with the strategic plan, and the board members have seen this, but most of the public hasn't, unless they're part of the reimagining or one of those groups. And again, not everyone's going to be able to see this, but you know, since we're talking about the future, I want people to know that we're serious about this. And many people in this room have been part of those processes. And this is an infographic, and there's not time tonight to go through it like we went through it at the retreat. But what I want people to know is we are committed to our learners and their future. And if you can't read it, there are 4 domains that lie outside the learners. And the learners being in the center is really important. And those include academics, which I think has always been a focus. But they also include wellness, employability, and citizenship. And the reason we're putting these in there is when we went out and asked people what their hopes and dreams were for their children, this is what they told us. They want them to get good jobs. They want them to be happy and have fulfilled lives. They want them to be good citizens and contribute to their community. They want them to do well academically. They want their social and emotional health to be good. They want them to have friends. They want them to feel their place in the world. And you know, the good thing about this is, even though it may be hard to make this happen, I haven't run into anybody yet who said this isn't what we should be doing. And so this is where we're aiming for, but we cannot get there in this budget cycle. So I guess my point to the board and to anyone listening is, you're not going to see anything in this budget that really gets us to this, because it's going to be kind of a planning and exploration year. We've got all kinds of people that have volunteered to be part of this work, and we'll take anybody else that wants to be part of it. That's kind of my open invitation. Send Meg Maloney an email, and we will add you to the groups. So that's kind of the first page. The second page are the specific strategies, and these are all drafts. None of this is written in stone. The board hasn't approved any of this. We've not implemented any of this. But basically, and I'll just read these quickly and then move back to the budget, we want our learners to progress through a personalized, competency-based education system. I don't have enough time to explain what that is, but at their own pace, with their own voice, things that are more relevant to them, that will make them more energized about school, and we believe more prepared for life when they leave school in those 4 areas that I just mentioned. And part of that is also that we leverage all of the many resources that we have here locally, not just in the 2 towns of Durham and Middlefield, but also in the surrounding area in terms of like our physical surroundings, but also the virtual surroundings. We can connect with people all over the world, and we need to leverage that to help our learners be prepared. But it's not just about that. There are supports that they need. One of them is an idea called a learning coach and a connection team. So every learner, and you heard Bob talk about this in his well-being summary, that every learner feels a sense of belonging and connection to at least one adult when they are in school, and that they are known by that adult, and not just because they're on the track team, or they're in the band, or they're part of the robotics club, where some of that is naturally baked in, but that if they walk through these doors and are part of our system, not just on this campus, but any of our campuses, that they would have that support. And again, we could unpack that more if we had more time. We also want them to be supported by educators who engage in personalized, relevant, and job-embedded professional learning. The idea here is that our teachers and other staff would have more ownership of their own professional learning. And not that what they're getting now isn't good, it's great, it's high quality. You heard some of that with Kristin Allen earlier. But right now, we still operate in a paradigm where more of that is programmed for them, instead of them being able to explore and do what they need, and maybe get more energized about it because they have some say in it, just like we're saying for the learners. I don't want to lose efficient operational practices. I think when we talk about John Lyman and consolidation and things like that, I mean, these are the types of things we're talking about. We'll get into a few more. That's not so much the learning side of it, but the idea here is if we don't do the operational pieces, technology, budget, capital improvements, all those things well, the rest of this stuff isn't going to happen, and it just won't matter. And last but not least, the groups that have engaged in this work have said repeatedly, part of our effort and part of the plan has to be educating the community, engaging the community, and getting the community to understand what we're trying to do so that they will support us. It's not good enough for the board just to adopt this plan. It's not good enough just for me to present it as superintendent, or the staff here to support it, or even the teachers. I mean, all of that is very important, but our learners, their families, and even our citizens who don't have children in the school system, they need to understand as best they can, and as in terms of how much they're interested to know, we need to engage them. And that's not just something we're going to do with one video or one brochure or one article in the Town Times. This is going to be a consistent and ongoing effort to have kind of two-way exchanges, and I'm very excited about that piece. So,
Hey, Deb.
yes.
Can we turn this set of lights off? Because I think on the live stream, I imagine they can't see the screen because the lights are.
Probably not. We'll just go ahead and post this on the website as well, but does anyone know how to get these lights off without like darkening the whole? Ken is saying no.
We've tried in the past, and it's the way the lights configuration, they go this way and not.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I just thought it'd help.
Yeah, okay. So let me get back to the slideshow, and I promise my part is almost done because I promised I would move it along here. Now I went way far ahead. Okay, so in addition to the two infographics that, again, most of you probably couldn't see from the back of the room or on the live stream, we also have some parts of this plan that haven't even been drafted yet, but I want to make sure that people know about that. Each of those 6 strategies, they're not just pie in the sky. They're actually going to be developed into action plans with specific actions, specific resources that are required, and specific timelines. And we don't have that yet because we're not there yet. We're just kind of starting that work. But that will be important, and that will all be made public, all of it. Everyone is going to be able to see that, and those will change constantly because it's iterative. And the other piece to this is there will be measurable outcomes for this plan, because as great as everything may sound that I'm saying, there's a so what factor to this. If children are not learning to read, if our graduates are not going out into the world and getting jobs or finishing college or trade school or whatever we think we want them to do, or being good citizens, then there's kind of this so what. And so we have to take a serious look at how we can measure some of that and report on it to the community to hold ourselves accountable for this work and make adjustments if the plan isn't delivering on the outcome. So again, that is coming in the future, and that really is more, maybe a year from now, we're in a better position to discuss some of that. But getting back to the topic at hand, is this your slide or is this mine? This is my last one, I think? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kim, for keeping me where I am. So I already mentioned that we're maintaining all of our current programming and staffing levels. So no changes to full-time equivalents, no increases, no decreases. We are holding where we are. And as a result, this budget has a significant increase from last year. And most of our money is in our people. So if we're keeping all of our people, and we know that there are salary increases, and Kim will speak to those, and we have a huge health insurance increase that we're trying to do business with, that's going to drive the budget up, and Kim will speak to that a little bit. But I guess I want to say about this too, with the impact of COVID. I cannot imagine, and I know there will be people that say this budget is too high and we just ought to cut it and reduce those positions now or whatever, and that's a perspective that we need to consider. But let me tell you something, and I told the chamber this morning, so I'll repeat it again here. I think we need to celebrate every day what our teachers and staff have done to do in-person learning last year and this year. And for us to come on the heels of that and reduce a bunch of staff, I think would be a slap in the face to those efforts. And so that's why I'm asking you all to do this. And if you tell us we have to reduce it, we will reduce it. But that's just kind of where we come from on this. I've already mentioned new leadership to assess and plan for the future. That starts with the board. It also includes myself. It includes all of our leadership, but a specific emphasis on our new leaders at the middle school and the high school who are coming in with fresh eyes from out of the district. And I think also see the potential to make some reductions if we need to make them. I mentioned the salaries and benefits already. Two things, again, you may agree or disagree with, but they are adding to the increase in the budget. One, the state has finally given regional school districts the permission to set aside up to 2% of their budget for capital reserve. So this is a budgeting tactic. We don't have to do it. There is no obligation. But when Kim speaks to this, I think you're going to hear why we think this is a best practice, not just for this budget cycle, but for budget cycles going forward. But we don't have to do that. And the last one is, and again, people are on different sides of this, and we've heard from those people. I'm viewing what has been called the field house. I don't see it as the field house or the storage shed or whatever we're calling it today. I see it as finishing the stadium project. And I only get one chance to say this because this is my first real budget. Last year I was just kind of showing up and going through the motions, to be fair, and supporting everything that had come before me. I can't explain to people why we have this state-of-the-art facility with a turf field that I would put up against anything, with a track, as a former track coach, that I would have killed to have in all my years of coaching track in Virginia. Beautiful bleachers, great parking. Maybe some of you don't agree with that, but I think it's great for a school this size. And then we have this kind of roughed-in thing that just sits there. And I don't know how to explain to people how when we fill our stadium for an event like we were able to do one Friday night here, even without permanent lights, side topic, but whatever, that everyone had to use porta-johns. And again, this isn't just about bathrooms, but my point is we shouldn't have done the project. Easy for me to say, I wasn't here. We shouldn't have done the project years ago if we weren't committed to completing it. So we've set some money aside in this budget to do this. And you all don't have to support that, and we don't have to do it. And I know the community is very divided on this, but I think I'd be remiss as superintendent if I didn't try to get this thing across the finish line this year. And I have to believe there are some people out there that will rally to our side on this, especially when you heard the presentations today about how important athletics is to not just our school, but to our community. And I've seen that in the year that I have been here. So.
Before you go ahead, though, I don't want you to switch.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. I was ready to hand it over to you.
I know he was going to switch the slide, and I wanted to get your all attention because nobody will listen to me once the numbers up on the screen. I can tell some people are, by the looks on their faces, have already seen it.
Yeah, I know a lot of you don't even care what I said. You just want to hear what she says, but that's fine. Here we are.
Before I start, I did email the budget books to all of you. I scheduled to send at 6:45 tonight, so you would get it. It will be posted to the website tomorrow morning. Before I start, I want to thank Tippy Pop and Robin Golembeski, two of my support staff who are amazing in helping with this budget, getting all the pieces together, but also all the administrators and all the administrative assistants. Shout out to Lori and Sandy back there, who are so great and responsible in their budgeting and really do a good job to help make my job a little bit easier. What will happen now is in a minute, we'll switch the slide and you'll get to see what the proposed budget number is. And of course, there will be some dialogue as to why and how. And then tomorrow morning, you'll also get a Google document that I'll share with you, which Lucy alluded to earlier, which really you just put your name and your question in, because I know in the next 10 minutes, you're not gonna be able to formulate your questions. Go home, look at them, things are gonna look funny to you that you just need an answer to. And please do that. And then we all can see the questions, we all can see the answers. We come back to the next budget meeting and I read the questions and the answers so the public can know that as well. So please use that. It's a very helpful tool because I might not know the answer on the spot about everything in the budget. So that helps me prepare too. And then the last thing, you're gonna notice some things that look a little funny in this budget cycle. And the reason is there was a change in the magnitude of how things are reported in our educator financial system, which is our state reporting. It used to be our EDO 01. And they want us to report things at the building level rather than at the district level. So an example of such is for special education services, speech services, OT, PT, outplaced tuitions. They were all reported at the special education district level. Now we have to do building specific, as well as buildings and grounds. So repairs, custodial supplies, all that stuff was district level, now it's building specific. You're gonna see a large decrease in special education and buildings and grounds, and you're gonna see large, sometimes 3,000% increases in the individual district locations, the school level locations. They look ridiculous, but it was a change in how, if we compare it to 21, 22, it changed significantly, but it was a reporting change. So please ask me if you still don't understand that, please let me know that. Okay, ta-da.
You ready?
Can I ask a question before you go? Have you had discussions with Bob Martino about the municipalities, the towns themselves, Durham included, having some reserves for this that might make up for our 2% that we wanna do?
We have.
I mean, I'm thankful for the 2%, but that still is, not quite adequate for the things that we need.
It is not enough, yes. We have, and that could be an ongoing conversation, but it won't happen for this budget
Right.
cycle.
You ready?
Yes, thank
I hate
you.
that, I feel like pulling everyone.
Oh, pressure. At the board retreat in January, I reported an estimated increase in the budget between a 4% and 7%, if you recall. So tonight, the proposed budget is a 4.56% gross budget increase and a 4.96% net budget increase. The difference between the two is the gross is total expenses, just expenses. The net is the expenses less any kind of revenue. And as a regional district, we have certain revenue for things like when we rent out our buildings, and we have MTA, which we have tuition paying students, so we have a bit of revenue that the towns do not have to make up that difference. So you might say, why is it 0.96? Why is it higher if it's net revenue? But the reason is because our revenue is lower this year than it was last year. Last year we had a fund balance issue. We do not have that this year, but we have a reduction in a revenue item that I'll get to a little bit in a couple of slides that makes up that 0.4 increase.
Ready?
Got through that all right.
I'm sorry?
You got through that all right.
Yeah. Okay, so here's our major budget driver increases, a lot of what Doug had already said. Salaries and benefits represent 74% of the total budget. And with that, it represents a 1.57% of that 4.56. Okay, so right off there, 1.57. Salaries and benefits, we have a mitigation strategy, which we'll go to on the next slide, and I can go into that a little further. District-wide capital needs. So district-wide capital needs, including the field storage building or high school stadium project, and debt service, represents 6.1% of the total budget. But it represents 1.91% of the 4.56 increase.
Can you say that again?
So while it's only 6% of the total budget, the increase from last year to this year in the debt service, capital, and the storage building is a 1.91% of that 4.56. So, I'm sorry, so
When you say
157 is salaries, 191 is capital debt service, and then the rest of the budget, which is the 19.9%, makes up a 1.08% of the 4.56 increase. So that's everything else. That's transportation, that's supplies, that's all operational costs, that's property insurance, everything. So that's how we get to the 4.56. It's made up really in those three big basic categories.
Just to clarify, when you say storage buildings for the 1.9, are you talking about the field house?
The field house, yes.
Field house, okay, just to clarify.
Yeah, so
Thank
field
you.
house, we classified under equipment. So it would really be capital needs, which would be the capital 2%, plus the equipment at the field storage building, plus our required debt service, makes up the 1.91. And then the decrease in revenue, we have a great program, MTA, where we, educate the students, and we have towns that pay us tuition. Well, upcoming next year, we have 7 RSD13 students going there, which is, I think, the largest we've ever had. That's amazing, but what that means is that we have as much staff that we have to pay for, but we're not getting any tuition from other towns. Conversely, we're also not paying another program for an outplace for those children. But what that means is I don't have the tuition to transfer the general fund, which is what we did somewhere around $200,000, $260,000 a year. We're down to $60,000 this year. So we took a $200,000 hit in revenue, which creates the 0.4 increase to now 4.96 net.
Ready?
Yes. The mitigation strategies that I spoke about earlier, this has sort of been a historical thing that we've done since I've been here, this is my 5th or 6th budget, is we don't book salaries at 100%. So while position control is there, we know everybody, we know what they're making next year, as long as they're in a certain position. We discount that back, because we know there's gonna be people leaving and people coming in at a lower rate. We know that positions go unfilled for a little bit of time, so there's a little bit of savings. Substitutes make less, than full-time permanent staff. So we've budgeted it at 97.5% rather than 100%. I've gone as low as 95%, but that wasn't a great year. We went over. And that was the year you're gonna see in the audit. This year we budgeted at 96.5, and we're running the line close. So I'm more comfortable going in 97.5%. Now, we used to say, we always said, well, the towns would prefer us to budget at the vacancy factor of the 97.5, and then if we do run over, we then have to ask them for an additional appropriation. That's a risk we have to decide we're gonna take. If you tell me you don't wanna do that, and we budgeted 100%, just know that the budget will probably go up another 1.5%. The next thing is contract negotiations. So, one big thing this year is that our Connecticut renewal for health insurance is 22%. Huge. Our loss ratio is 131%. Nobody's making any money on us, and nobody will take us. We can't get another insurance company to take us. So there are a couple different plans, mitigation strategies that Doug and I have looked into, and this budget assumes those are gonna happen. If those don't happen, I will come back to you at another meeting and say we're up another 2% because that health insurance did not work out for us. So we're hopeful that we have a plan B, and this assumes plan B, but if plan B doesn't come through, I'm gonna have to come back with another increase.
Do plans A and B on those, do they still incorporate the 2 towns in?
So, yes and no. We're actually looking at it in two different scenarios. So without, and we've actually got 2 different avenues that we're looking at. So we've got
I was
a whole
shocked
bunch
to
of
hear during Durham's, one of their budget workshops, they actually said that their insurance was decreasing in the budget. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's not what we've seen. I think they're looking.
That's what they said at the meeting.
I think what they're saying is they're looking at some of the same options we are,
Yeah.
and if they choose one of those options, I think the increase is much less dramatic than the 22%, so it's still an increase though. It's very rare in health insurance to ever not have some increase.
If this Plan B, the other options that we're looking at do work out, it will be significantly in our favor, and we will have a little bit of a savings, but we actually will realize a little bit of a savings. So, and that's what I've incorporated into here. So maybe that's kind of what they're saying is that they would have a
Lindsay,
little savings.
to further complete the question, just so we're not jumping the gun, we are currently in a health plan with the two towns and RSD13, and that's the plan. The two options that we're currently pursuing are much larger pools. And so we may choose one and one of the towns may choose another one because we're basically acknowledging at this point that our little pool just isn't working for us. And to stay in it, it's not great for really anybody, not the district and not the employees either, because their premiums are also going up 22%. And so Kim and I both feel very strongly that we are going away from the current plan, which is what our consultants have advised, and that's why we felt comfortable programming in the savings here, but we wanted to make sure that you just heard that if for some reason you all didn't want us to do that, which I can't imagine anyone would, like, all these numbers get higher.
Absolutely, and I want to add on to that though, we recognize we have 6 bargaining units, that we have contractual requirements to, inform them in writing, and we've been through this a couple years ago when we went to our current carrier, that we have to provide an equal or better to plan. And there's notifications, there's meetings, and there's an appeal process and a whole thing. So that could stop it too. So there are a couple different things that could happen. But like Doug said, if that doesn't happen, I'll be coming back and saying we need to go up another 2 on top of the 4.56.
So I may miss something. So contractually with our bargaining units right now, when is the healthcare portion of their contract coming up?
So there are 3-year contracts,
Right.
and they're staggered dates, but we have the clause in there is that we can change the health insurance at any time. We don't have to wait until renewal date of their contract, but we have to provide an equal or better to plan, and they have the ability to vet it and appeal if they don't care for it.
So in a perfect world, they agree with our analysis that the plan is the same or better, and if they acknowledge that, they can't say, oh, they don't like the plan provider, or they can say that, but I'm saying they can't stop us from moving there. And again, I don't want to speak for any of the unions, and some of the folks are here in the audience. I don't think they want to pay any more premiums than we do. So I think this could be a win-win for everybody.
And that's part of the information that's presented to the bargaining unit employees, is this is how much it would be if you stay, this is how much it would be if we were to switch carriers, and then that helps form each decision.
Kim?
Yes.
Can you just remind people that weren't with us, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we had that huge savings?
We saved $1 million by going to Connecticut.
Right. And that's what I just went out there.
2 years, and we were locked into
and we
a
knew it
2-year
wasn't
contract.
gonna last, unfortunately.
It was a brand new program. We partnered with the two towns. It's almost like you're shopping for cable and they give you a great rate.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the next year, oh, sorry, we're considered a high user now. Is that
It's
why
true, but
it's
our
going up?
loss ratio is very high, so, but also with that savings we had 2 years ago, we're kind of really at where we would have been. We're no higher than where we would have been, without that savings.
Right.
So that
saved our budget that year.
Well,
It
we
did.
kept it at
Right,
zero
it
because
did.
of that.
Yes, it was $1 million.
Right, which is huge.
And then another, which I didn't put on here, but I just want to mention, because sometimes we've used it the last 2 years, is to use our current year surplus to help offset any kind of increase. Too early to know now, but as I look at it, and I have Tippy and we do an independent analysis, and then we get together and see if we agree. And we both agree that we're not running a very big surplus at this point. So I don't know that's going to be a viable option for us this year. Capital reserve is very big in this budget because I maxed the 2%. And 2% of a $38 million budget is $750. I booked $740,000 for capital. That's a lot of money. That's 2%, right? But it's going to be broken down into these categories. So turf replacement, it's just, we've been ongoing doing that. We've been committed to that. It's $27,500. It'll get us close to where we have enough money to replace the truck. We might not need it for another year or two, but to not save for it and then need it, we're gonna be in the same position that we're gonna need the track and we don't have the turf and we don't have enough money for it. Unanticipated repairs and maintenance with the age of our buildings and with a lot of the systems and things that are just aging out, we have a lot of repairs and maintenance that we just don't know that are gonna happen. So $50,000 every year we put in capital reserve and we've been spending it for things that pop up that we don't even see coming. This is the big one, Picket Lane paving. Picket Lane paving has never been saved for in the capital budget. And there was, I'm going over, and we could talk about this more in another meeting, but in this I'm proposing $582,500 go to Picket Lane paving. That's the entire length of Picket Lane. We just got a quote of what that will cost, $1.7 million. The reason is the base was never solid enough, apparently. So with the heavy bus traffic and local traffic, if that road is gonna be resurfaced, it needs to be sort of rebuilt. And I've got all the specifics, we can talk about it in another meeting. You can ask me, I can show you in the Google Doc of why that is so expensive and what the work needs to be done. So we don't have anything saved for that. So if we do some now, and we had a little bit of money in the bonding for it, hopefully we can put some money together and get this done. We're planning to do it 2023. Part of that is going to be done earlier by Strong, and that's going to be done by EPA, which is the water line. They had come in and said, we're going to put the water line and we're going to resurface Picket Lane for you. Well, that'd be great, but all they were going to do is mill and something, pave it, but the base is not there. So we would just fall right apart again. So Jimmy made an agreement with them that they would do a monetary equivalent full paving section. And that's only, I think it's 700, sorry, I can get the details, but and that's gonna be in front of Strong, because we feel that that's the best place for it at this point, and also, we have to be able to move the buses and the traffic through if we're gonna be doing it before summer.
So does that go from the light to where the culvert is?
Probably Allenbrook, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's that stretch, yeah. If you drove down Picket Lane to get here tonight, which everybody did, you won't argue with me. It needs to be paved. And then Strong, there's brick repair and replacement at Strong, just leaking. We've got leaking, we've got, apparently I think it's the original brick work, and we need to address that this year. And that's $80,000. So all said, that's $74,500. $740,000. But what I wanna say before I get to this is, we had a shift in priorities in our capital this year, because I was saving for the sprinkler pump house. You see, last year was phase 2. I had to pull that out this year because I need Picket Lane money. Jimmy said Picket Lane's more of a priority than the pump house. We can get through another year and have another chance to save. And then I also, Strong and Coggins, end-of-life systems are happening every single day. We have nothing saved for that. So, you know, this budget, this capital of 740 doesn't address any of that. We were lucky enough to pay for the chiller through the COVID grant, $250,000. I guess what I'm saying is we talk about kicking the can down the road. Okay, well, there's no more road. We're done. Like, this is it. So that's why we're so heavy on capital. If you don't want to go this route and increase the operating budget, then we have to look at another bonding referendum. But if it fails, what do we do? So that's why I've chosen, and Doug agrees with me, we have to max out this capital that we're allowed to do. Okay, debt service. Speaking of bonding, so the blue is the existing debt service. So when I say existing, that's what's been here since I got here. We've had some debt fall off, and then 25-26 we enter our first year of no more existing debt. But the orange represents the debt on the 6.9 bonding that we did back in 2019. We haven't used all that yet, and we had various reasons, because we did an energy project, and we, you know, so the orange represents that piece of the debt service that is on the 6.9 million. So we're done with old financing and with new. Should we have another debt referendum, another Lymon referendum, or increase the budget to save for Lymon? there's gonna be like a green part on top of there, which will be another debt, service. And, let's see. Since 2015, our budget has gone up 1.192 or 3.2%. So since 2015, the budget's risen by that much. And per pupil has increased by 5,400 per student, or 28%. So the point, I guess, of this is that the budget's gone up 3.2% and per pupil's gone up 28. It's not because the spending has necessarily gone up, it's because the enrollment's gone down and the spending has not gone down to meet that match. And I'm almost done. And then each, we have to show town allocations. So Middlefield had a little bit of bump in the percentage this year from 33.26 to 35.50. And Durham had a little bit of a relief in that number by the makeup of the students. So proportion net expenses to the member towns, you see, less ECS grants. We got notification today that the ECS grants were proposed to be a little bit higher for each town, so those represents the numbers we got today. But the bottom line is the net increase to member towns, what each town can expect to have to increase their budget by due to our increase. And that would be Durham of 331,000 and Middlefield $1.3 million. A lot of that for Middlefield is because of that student enrollment change. So they have more students enrolled now than they did last year.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
Is the corn building?
Nothing for corn is in here at all.
Well, it's not, the sale hasn't been finalized yet, so could be some questions anyway.
And I just, you know, in my 5 years of doing this, I never come forth with a budget like this. I haven't been comfortable doing anything like that, but now that we can save the 2% and really, and I'm getting quotes for $1.7 million, it's coming in every single day. I don't know how Jimmy gets any sleep. And so I really endorse this as being, we need this.
Because we wouldn't be where we are with the Lyman building had this been done in the past.
If we had savings, yes, and we could have fixed things as we.
And let me say this too, again, this is not like, I don't have the data to show you, but so it's more like anecdotal, but Kim has an association and other business managers that she talks to, and I talk to other superintendents. Every district I know of is having a significant increase in this year's budget, and part of that is just the inflationary pressures of, but part of it is even things like construction. Everything is going up, and people don't want to hear that, but it doesn't mean we have to stick with this level of an increase, but I'm not saying it made us feel better, but it made us feel like we're kind of in good company in terms of this is playing out in practically every town and district across Connecticut.
We belong to a consortium for fuel purchasing, and we paid $1.99 a gallon for this year we're in. We're at over $3 this year, everybody. So those are just huge increases, and we're hoping it stays at 3.
Are we locked in at 3?
We're gonna lock in soon. It's a sweet spot when we're gonna lock in, and the group has to agree when it's the right time, but yeah.
But I mean, you go to the grocery store and everything's more expensive. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I picked up a can of paint this morning that was $60.
It just makes it tough too, because people are feeling it too.
Kim, if I'm not mistaken, we have maxed out what we were able to put in the capital reserve over the
past
last
couple
several
of
years.
years, yes.
That I've been on the
Absolutely.
board, yeah,
Yeah.
we pretty much tried to max out what we can put in, so you're just keeping with that same
Absolutely.
pattern.
Yeah, but I can do more this year. I can do another whole percent.
Right, because I got it.
So we did whatever we could have done legally to prepare for future contingencies.
Right.
Yeah.
What the state would let us do.
Correct.
Seems to be there's an interest in wanting us to bond.
Yes. And we did have some COVID grants last year, which we did reduce our supplies, our buildings and maintenance supplies. We purchased a lot of PPE and supplies with that COVID money that we don't have this year, so supplies is also up because of that. So there's a lot of reasons.
We developed the long-term capital plan several years ago, and really, you see that debt service line, we had looked at maintaining debt service around $1.5 million a year in the budget. And the debt service and capital improvements can all come out of that basic line. And what we felt is, as the debt service down, if we were allowed, we could put some of the capital reserve in there without affecting that debt service value of about $1.5 million. So that doesn't mean it doesn't go up, because now we're gonna see in 2 years our debt service line drop. But some of those capital improvements can fill in where that debt service was without bonding, or we can bond.
But with debt service, you can get a lot more done because you
Oh,
can
yeah.
borrow a lot more money for the same amount as, you know, what you would just be able to put in for capital.
But didn't we cut a good portion of bonding to zero the budget, I believe, right? Wasn't there a good chunk?
Well, last year we had debt fall off, so we were able to realize the savings from last year, but this year there wasn't, it actually went up because we had some 6.9 million projects that we did, and now we're gonna be paying interest on those, so we did save some money on the debt service last year. But what Bob was saying is we wanted to, you know, a good budgeting strategy is just keep it flat, but what that means is that you bond more, so you have more borrowing capability and keep the budget at zero, but that's going out to the taxpayers and asking for more bonding to do that.
Or we looked at, you can, if we had the authority to do more than 2%, you could fill some of that debt service
Yes.
portion where it drops off in 2 years. You could fill that back up and maintain the same budget level and use it. But
Yes.
we couldn't do it because we didn't have the authority.
And just to make the public aware, Picket Lane, we own Picket Lane.
We own
RSD
Picket Lane,
13
and
owns
even with the
Picket Lane.
transfer of Warren to Durham, we still retain ownership of Picket.
And there's no state grant or anything for repaving.
Not for repaving, we are getting a grant for the culvert, but not
Correct.
for repaving.
And you said it was 1 point what
1.7 million.
currently?
That's
That's
today.
the estimate that I got yesterday.
And asphalt's probably high right now, right? Just like everything else?
Most places won't even quote asphalt right now, because they don't know expenses.
All right, so we have some information to digest, and don't forget, if you have questions, Kim will set that up in Google Docs, Google Drive.
Google Doc, yeah.
And, you know, feel free to ask your questions and clarifications. Moving on, because it's about 8:45.
Sorry.
That's okay, thank you, thanks a lot. We have a superintendent's report. We're gonna start with the COVID update.
Yes, thank you, Lucy. I think people are probably tired of listening to me, but here we go. I mentioned the 3 elephants in the room, and I think one through line of all of them is whether you're talking about what we do at John Lyman, or this budget that we just presented, or what I'm about to talk about with the mask mandate, they all have the common theme that I think they're gonna divide our community. I think people are on different sides of these issues, and so it really does position all of us in a challenging way. But what I specifically wanna talk to you about is the mask mandate. And so I think we heard this from speakers, and we've gotten a few emails on this. So Monday, Governor Lamont issued a recommendation that the mask mandate for schools, the state mask mandate for schools, be phased out at the end of this month, the 28th. It's a Monday, beginning of a week. General Assembly convened today. I understand the House and I understand that the House is going to be debating this issue tomorrow, and the Senate will debate it Monday. And this is all very important because the 15th is the day that the governor's executive powers, the current version of it, are set to expire. So again, no crystal ball here, but we're thinking there's a good chance that this is going to go through, and whether the date is the 28th or some date around that, I think we need to kind of prepare for that. So I think it's important for you all to understand where I sit on this. Staff and I have talked about this. I don't want to speak for them, but most of us are of a like mind. So you know, my position basically is if the state mandate's lifted, that in RSD13, we allow each individual and each individual family to decide if they want to wear masks in school. But that we as a district would not have that mandate, and more importantly, we would stop enforcing it. Except where the law may require, because what I heard the governor say is The state could get to a place with COVID where it gets re-invoked, and I personally think that would just be a nightmare beyond nightmares if we don't do this and then it comes back up. But I think it's also important that it'd be two things that would trigger it for me. One would be something changes from the state level. The other would be if our local health director sees something in local COVID cases that is so concerning that she pushes us in that direction. And you know, a state health director is going to make sure that that's a pretty extreme situation, given that there wouldn't be a state mandate, and that she'd be putting her neck out there pretty far. But I think I wanted you to know that is my position, and you may agree with it or you may not agree with it. But let me just say a few things about this. First, I have requested a meeting with leadership from our unions, because I need to understand how they feel about this, because, you know, if they don't support this and this is going to be a point of contention, this is going to be a very hard thing to do. And my suspicion is their membership might be divided on this too. I think, again, everyone is being impacted and feeling the impacts of COVID in a different way. So I think we need to honor that. Also, my group of 20 or 30 superintendents, they've scheduled like an emergency Zoom for tomorrow, because everybody wants to know what everybody else is doing. So let me say this, and I've said this to some people, and some people agree with me and some people don't, but just hear me out and process this for a minute. Unless you're sitting here believing that we're going to have this mask mandate forever, and I'm going to throw that term out there loosely, forever, there has to be a date and a time when we exit from this strategy. And so I think we have to have a compelling reason, if we're given this latitude by the state, to impose something that the state would not impose on us. Secondly, and again, that's a tough issue and people kind of struggle with this. I like the idea of us transitioning to a place where anyone can wear a mask. And remember, nobody was doing this a couple of years ago, so you could do it with no judgment or anything like that, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child. If your parent tells you that, you know, you wear it, then, you know, they wear it, and if they don't. There may be some exceptions, like we're not clear right now how buses are going to be treated. We think maybe we're still going to have to mask on buses, so it may not completely go away. We also don't know how the quarantine return rules are going to be. Like right now the rules say you can come back, but you have to be masked. So don't hear me say like all the masks go away in all circumstances. There will still be some situations, I would think, where that would occur. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that bus tied to public transportation?
It is.
within the state?
It is, and it's somehow tied to some national standard, and so we haven't gotten a clear, as you might imagine, the state is being inundated with questions about how this is all going to work, and they have no answers because the action hasn't even taken place at the state level yet. It's just kind of presumed to doing that. So again, I know that whatever we do here, we're going to get criticized one way or the other. What I'm trying to avoid this evening, if possible, is if this decision comes in the next few days or whatever, to kind of take the pulse of the board, because your policy currently empowers me to make this decision, but I have to tell you, this is not one I want to stand alone on, because it's too controversial and out there, and I've talked to some of you individually, and I kind of know where some of you stand, and I know you don't all stand in the same place on this. So if we don't want to have that conversation tonight, we don't have to, but then we have to schedule a special meeting, and my goodness, we just had a work session about how do we schedule fewer meetings, and so really, I guess I'd kind of like to know if there's any questions that we probably can't answer, but we'll still try, but also if you have thoughts about, you know, if you feel like I'm crazy to be in this position or the staff to do that, what's starting to happen is we're starting to hear more and more, and I think it even came out in the Wellbeing Committee meeting, that the harm on the social emotional side to employees, to our learners, the stress we're putting on families around all of this is starting to outweigh the perceived good that's happening. And so that's kind of where I'm in the position I'm in, and I don't know if we'll be alone in this way. I imagine we wouldn't be. I imagine there will be districts across the state that take different positions on this, and I think we need to honor and respect that too. So if that happens, like, we could be playing a basketball game at a district that's keeping it. And so then our learners would still be masked in that setting because that's their rule and we have to follow it, just like private businesses are requiring it and airplanes and all those things. I'll be quiet now because I think I've said too much already. And the hour is late. But what are people thinking about this right now?
Just for the history, the current policy that we have for Doug is that it ends as, therefore, the RSD Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to implement guidelines or procedures that comply with state mandates and guidance from the district health director, Connecticut State Department of Health, CDC, and Connecticut State Department of Education.
Correct, but he's saying he doesn't want to stand alone on this.
No, I'm just saying that for.
I'd like to know where you guys stand on that. I don't want to call a special meeting to reverse speak, which you could do. I would just rather like hash that out now and see where we're going on this.
I find it quite unbelievable that literally a month ago, it was, we need N95, we need trouble and triple mask, we need COVID testing kits. How can we be at this place all of a sudden? That I do find strange, but
Dropped from
that's just me.
24% positivity rate.
We are currently, as I understand it, one of 8 states in the United States that has a school mask mandate, and almost all of them are moving away from them. And so whether you want to call that politics or whatever, I personally believe, this is what I personally believe, I think public sentiment has changed on this issue, and I think were it not for Omicron, we would have been there a long time ago. Were it not for Delta, we would have been there in the fall. And so, but I think you make a great point, Jamie. It's very hard to explain to people how it was like, we have to do all this, we go to never mind. Never mind, we're not gonna do any of it, but yeah.
It is hard because they're not on those Tuesday morning endless DPH calls where people ask them the same questions. But I mean, that's been the case. I promised myself I wasn't gonna talk this much, but I blew it. So to your point, I'm just gonna jump out there and say, I think your idea about like people having personal choice if they're gonna wear their masks or kids are gonna wear their masks is, there's a lot of good reasons to do that. I'm sure we're gonna hear from people about why that's not okay too, because this is the only time we've been through this. But as things have gone along from where I stand, the DPH folks have been on the money really well most of the time. We've been on those calls and other people haven't. But they're now saying, we're gonna lift this mandate, and they have pushed back against the governor and other people when they wanted to do that earlier. So that's just me. I know other people haven't been there, but I'm feeling a lot more comfortable than I was a couple of weeks ago about that being the decision that gets made here in district, simply because they've been on the money the whole time. You know, and in the beginning we didn't know, and so we were doing all these other things, but I feel comfortable, especially since the board adopted a policy that gave you that leeway. They clearly felt at the time that, you know, and I agree, you don't want to be on your own on this one, but they felt that they could trust you with that, so I also trust your recommendation.
Someone else?
Well said. I'll echo that. I think that the children, the parents should have their, if they want their child to wear the mask, they should wear the mask, but I think if you're gonna lift it, then that's fine.
I agree with that too.
Same here.
Jason?
No, I really do as well, and I've sat on every one of those DPH calls since like
brutal,
since at least like the past 4 months. So they have really pushed back, and they have really, what I've gotten frustrated on some calls that I felt it was, you know, a little bit overzealous, but you know, for DPH to go out and put out a statement today saying that they supported lifting these mask mandates was huge. It was huge for me to see. I'm dying for these kids to have a normal spring. I want to see Mr. Coggenshock. I want to see faces. I want to see the musical. I want to see band, chorus. I want these kids that were, they're seniors now, so sophomore year was the last year that they all saw each other's faces. We weren't able to give that to our seniors last year, so I want that for them. I would support lifting it on the 15th if his executive orders expire on the 15th and it is not extended. I would support the 15th and not the 28th, but if it goes to the 28th, I think it's very important that we take a stand for the well-being of these kids, that we give some choice. And allow parents to continue to mask if they want. You allow teachers. We do everything we can to support the staff to make sure that in that scenario they feel safe. And we hear from staff, and I'm sure Doug would. But I think it's time, and we're hearing from former board members, former physicians that are also saying that, or current physicians that are saying this is also the right time to maybe do this. So.
And I agree, again, going with the states, I mean, having been a family who just recovered from COVID
Us too.
2 weeks ago, I mean, I agree with Jamie. I'm overwhelmed, and that we are still sitting here talking about this yet as far as the state goes. I think it's wonderful. I agree with you. Like, I think there's not one person in this room who would love to see these kids rip these off and burn them and never see them again. I just struggle with the timing. I'm just baffled. It took a lot out of our family. I wonder, I'm thinking of the staff. It's great for the kids, but we have a lot of staff members who are compromised, are older, who have family members who are. So it would take a lot for me to be convinced that we're not jeopardizing our staff members by letting our kids feel free. And I do wonder, as far as what are our steps with symptoms. I mean, we could have a classroom where the families decide that they don't want their child to be masked, but they're coughing all over the place in the classroom, or they have sniffles and they have a runny nose. Yes, it could be a cold, but they're not masked, which I thought originally was the whole idea of a mask, was to protect other people from the possibility of germs. So do we then tell those children that they have to put a mask on because they're showing symptoms, or they're spreading germs somehow? I just don't.
I think the protocol would be, if they're showing symptoms, they get sent to the nurse, the parent gets called.
So it would be an automatic testing right then and there?
Well, we wouldn't do it, we would recommend that, and again, the state may
Okay.
come up with new protocols.
Okay.
But
Those are just questions I
again,
have off the top
no,
of
no,
my
I
head.
think you're raising a good point with all of this, and again, I'm not sure they've thought all of this through completely, but I think your point is a good one.
I spoke at length with my 10th grade class in Hartford today. Just from their perspective, it's amazing. They were all right on it. They don't get much news, but boy, that phone told them these masks might be going away. I said, well, that depends on our district and perhaps the city of Mayor Hartford. But the fear that many of the students had, and these kids are tough. They are tough kids. The fear they had was, if I choose to continue wearing it, the vaccination rates are very low in the cities, as we all know, not maybe here, but their fear was being ostracized or picked out because they choose to wear the mask and the others don't. And that was a real fear many of them had. I don't know if that would exist in this district, but I would like the students to really have an understanding that,
I think that's a good
you
point.
do the right thing.
No, I think that's a good point, and I think what I would say to that is, that could even happen now with like glasses. Not to pick on people that wear glasses, but name calling and all that, and some children might not wear them because they feel stigmatized with that, and we have to do business with that, not just the district, but the parents and everybody. But the way that I'm viewing this, and again, maybe this isn't the way to view it, but I've said this in a lot of settings and it resounds with people. What you're describing is what's happening outside of the school everywhere. So I go to Walmart, and if I'm choosing to wear my mask, I'm wondering, are the unmasked people looking at me and saying, why are you wearing a mask? Are you afraid you're going to get COVID or whatever?
Like wearing it in the car.
Yes, or if I'm not wearing my mask, are they looking at me and saying, oh, you irresponsible citizen, here I am a superintendent. Like, what example are you setting for your community? But I think the point in all that is, I think our learners are experiencing that outside of school. And so we're going to make school more like the rest of the world. And I think that also has to do with the spread of the pandemic, is that it comes down to individual choices. And really, are we as a school system even able to really meaningfully protect people from the spread of this disease? I mean, we've only been doing it because we've been told we have to, in my opinion. either with the health directors or by the state or whatever executive order. That's why this is so hard, because I don't know that we would be doing all this if they hadn't just given us our marching orders from the state. So in some ways, they're putting all of us in an awkward position to have all these rules for all these years and then say, okay, now you just decide. Make it like a snow day, you know, and you call it, and somebody says it's a wrong call, and somebody says it's the right call, and so yeah, I think that's really important. Having said all that, the position of the staff and me is still the same in that, knowing that that's a piece of it we're going to have to manage until we get to a point where there is no stigma for wearing a mask. It's just like it becomes so normal to people.
Well, it has to start with the parents and the adults in the town too.
100%.
So,
Yep.
I think
you
kids are
know,
gonna
I
respect
think-
that.
The kids have been fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm comfortable with the position that Doug has mentioned, and I know someone in the audience, even though they left, asked, you know, what is your involvement? I mean, I'm in that real vulnerable age group, and I feel comfortable saying I'll wear a mask if I don't feel comfortable, and I will not wear one if I feel fine. You know, so I think the choice is very important, and I think overall, if you're wearing a mask, I think you're protecting yourself as much as you possibly can from contracting someone else's COVID, cold, flu, whatever. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're wearing a mask or not, you're protecting yourself. So it's your choice and how you feel comfortable. And I know there's a lot of little issues that come into play, but I'm comfortable with.
If anything good can come from all of this, I'll tell you, I have felt great the last couple of years.
I know.
I'm not
I haven't
afraid
caught
when
anything
it
for
comes
2
along
years.
again, if there's a flu
I know.
season, I don't care, I'm fine, I'll put it on.
Exactly, so, you know, you may find more people
We might have an
wearing them
increase in
at certain times of the
productivity,
year.
less sick outs, I mean, there might be some good to come of this in the next decade, who knows?
I do
What comes
remember
of that
times.
little germs in your system comes
Yeah.
big problems when you actually.
Yeah, you're right.
I do remember times teaching when you had 30 to 40% of your children, your staff and children out of school for the flu. You know, at certain times of the year that would happen, and luckily a vacation would come along and hopefully we would break that cycle a little bit. But, you know, I do remember that happening, and, you know, you did feel a little uncomfortable walking around trying to breathe, but we never had the masks as an option. Would have been a good time.
I think the bottom line is we're a public school and we have to go with the state DPH is whatever their mandate. That's how we began this whole pandemic. We went with their advice, their guidance, and go with it with us.
So other thoughts? Missy, I know we didn't hear from you. You wanted to share.
I mean, the person that asked left, but I am a healthcare worker. I have been on the front lines. I've been a healthcare worker for 18 years. I'll put that on the record since she left. I've lost family members. I've lost friends. I've lost patients. So it is real. Things are better, yes. I haven't really looked at the numbers this week just because I've had a little bit of a busy week. But I mean, our numbers in this district have been very high. And if we had these numbers last year, we would have been back on remote learning. So I think it's really important to ask our staff how they feel because we can't afford, you know, them to walk out or anything like that. So that's what I'm more concerned about is I want, you know, our staff to feel safe and comfortable and their well-being to be okay. I mean, I've already told my kids, you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to. I have anxiety from this and I will continue to wear a mask probably for a really long time. And that's okay. I might be the only one sitting here with a mask on in June, but that might be where I am at, and I don't think there's a problem with that. But I do think that if we do unmask, that it needs to be part of the social emotional learning and all of that we're doing for our kids and saying, if you see a student wearing a mask, like don't be picking on them because it's just not appropriate. Otherwise it's gonna turn into they walk out the door with a mask on and then they hide it in their backpack, just like people used to hide makeup in their backpack in high school. I mean, it's true. And we can't expect our teachers to police that and say, oh, Susie's supposed to be wearing a mask. Nope, so-and-so doesn't have to wear a
Yeah,
mask.
I'm glad you made that point. I don't think
Because
that
it's
would
not
be our
fair.
position.
I mean, because I had that
Yeah.
issue with gum chewing.
Yeah.
Like some teachers like let kids chew gum. I don't let my kids chew gum. And they're supposed to know that they're not supposed to chew gum in class. And then I walk in back when I was able to volunteer in the school and my kid's chewing gum and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we don't do that, and so it's just that, and then I think what you did make mention of, right now, the protocol is if you have COVID and you return after 5 days, you're supposed to mask for an additional 5 days. So somehow that does have to get policed.
Correct.
Even though it's supposed to be, no one's supposed to know who had it,
Right, I was
but
gonna say
that is important.
So that's one thing British, you said that too. I mean, then it becomes a stigma of, now we know who came back and has COVID because now they have to wear a mask for 5 days.
But they already know.
We already knew that.
Well,
You already know they've been out for 5 days.
You know what though, the whole
And everyone-
social, I'm just thinking high school level. Elementary, I think they could swing it and they could come back. High school level would be brutal, like Missy said, coming back. I think there's.
But you might be surprised now that we've
Yeah,
been
I
doing
agree
it
with
for
you.
so
You're surprised.
I might be, but I don't know.
You might be right.
But social-emotional, going around the social-emotional learning also, we have a lot of kids that are going to have high anxiety over people unmasking also, and we can't disregard that population of kids. There will be a lot of kids who really liked the protection of going to school and felt comfortable, who will now be like, like Misty said too, I mean, there's a real anxiety of people unmasking or having to sit in a whole classroom of other kids who aren't masked. That has to be, acknowledged also.
But we can't ignore the opposite of that as well.
Right,
That's
but
the
there's
hard
two
balance.
sides, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes, there are the kids that can't wait to take them off, and there's the kids that really liked that protection.
We might have parents that want their kids not to wear them, but the child wants to. So, I mean, there's a lot of components to it,
Yep.
so.
Good luck.
Is there someone we have not heard from? Amanda? Not sure.
No, I agree. Let it be the family's choice. I talked to my daughter about it. I said, if you didn't have to wear it to school, because she doesn't wear it for anything else, including gymnastics and traveling for competitions, would you want to wear it? She said, absolutely not. None of the kids want them on. That's just from her perspective as an 8-year-old child in our district. So I said, if you want to, you can wear it. If not, fine. But I really do think it should be everyone's choice.
Okay, thank you all for that. So, on part B, other, I promise this will be quick, there's just a few things. First, we kind of did this at our work session, but we have more people here and maybe more in our audience. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate and welcome our newest board member, Rebecca Adams. Thank you for your service and joining this board. To Rebecca's credit, she's already made time to meet with me. I think we talked for about an hour last week, and that was really good for me to get to know you a little bit better and hopefully for you to get to know me. And I know she's going to be a great resource and asset to this board, so we welcome you and appreciate your service. The second thing, and this was referenced earlier, I think by Missy maybe, I do want to let you know, stop the presses. We actually have a signed sales agreement with the town of Durham for the transfer of Corn School. Okay, now that doesn't mean they own the building yet, because there's this due diligence period, and so sometime around late May is when it's projected to actually transfer, and I know that's longer than any of us thought, but it's progress. And I'm probably not going to mention this again until it actually is transferred, and then maybe we'll have a celebration or something. Yeah. And then the third thing I want to mention is we have a request from our benchwarmers group for the scoreboard, the new scoreboard that's going to be in the gym. That instead of it reading simply donated by the benchwarmers, that it instead say donated by the benchwarmers in memory of Bob Grenier. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name correctly.
Grenier.
What is it?
Grenier.
Grenier, okay.
Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob.
Yep.
And so he's been a strong supporter of Coggin-Shock Sports, or was, rather, has passed away, and family-owned business, and they continue to provide flowers to graduating seniors at senior days. Now, we researched the policy very carefully. This does not require a vote because we're not naming a school or a major thing. But I just, again, wanted to make sure before we did this that you all were aware and that if anybody had any concerns, we could try to address those before we actually give permission. But if those concerns aren't there, I'd like to go ahead and give them permission to do that. So does anyone have any concerns about that?
I just have is that just on one of the, there's two?
Just on one of them.
Just on one of them, okay, because if I remember correctly, the benchwarmers contributed a certain amount of money and the school district picked up the rest, so, okay.
It would be on the one. As a bench warmer, just if I can. I mean,
Yes, please.
The committee for the bench warmers is strongly behind this, and they couldn't go to a more deserving guy, so I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Yep, that was my only question.
Thank you, I'm done.
Okay. Item 14, I'm hoping that maybe we can make it in 20 minutes and be out of here
Oh,
by
yeah.
9:30.
All I'm gonna say is, financials were emailed to you. If you have any questions, reach out to me. We're just running on track. My next thing is I have, our independent auditor sitting back there so patiently waiting to come up and give you a review on the independent audit, which is under new business, the vote. So come on up, Dave. This is, Dave Flint, formerly of Bloom Shapiro, and Bloom Shapiro was bought out by Clifton Larson Allen. Here, do you wanna sit here, or?
Wherever you would like.
I'm probably over at the microphone. Do you think that'll work? So Dave, you know, each municipal agency or, you know, tax exempt agency, we are required to have an annual audit every year. And it's a series of field work and lots of interviews, not necessarily interviews, but some interviews, and then there's a lot of information passed back and forth. And so Dave is here that's what I passed out to everyone. You have copies of the financials. You also have a state single audit act and a federal audit, which Dave will explain to you. And feel free to ask him any questions. And then we'll just vote to accept the report. If you're comfortable tonight, if you're not, we can do it another meeting. And these were emailed with all the stuff, so I hope everybody got to look at it. Okay?
Thank you, Kim. Good evening, everybody. As Kim said, my name is David Flint from Clifton Larson Allen. We are formerly Bloom Shapiro. So we are the same auditors as last year. We just went through a merger. So I'll try to keep it quick. I'll try to keep it high level for you guys, but feel free to ask any questions as we move along. I'm going to start with the financial statements. You'll see on pages 1, 2, and 3, we issued an unmodified opinion over the financial statements. An unmodified opinion is the best opinion that one can receive. Included in this opinion is an emphasis of matter paragraph. This is related to a new GASB standard that we implemented this year, and I'll go over that in a little bit. And we also did not report any findings on internal control over compliance. So just some financial highlights. If you guys could flip to page 10 and 11, and this is the district's government-wide financial statements. And these are prepared on a full accrual basis of accounting, which means they include the district's long-term assets and liabilities. So you can see at the end of the 2021 fiscal year, the district had assets of $40.1 million, deferred outflows of resources of $1.3 million, total liabilities of $11.5 million, deferred inflows of resources of $3.8 million, which leaves us with a total net position of $26 million, most of which is invested in capital assets. If you flip just a couple pages to Exhibit 3, which is page 12, these are your fund-based financial statements, and these are prepared on a modified accrual basis of accounting. Here you have the district's 4 major funds, which are your general fund, your cafeteria fund, special school grants and programs, and your capital reserve fund. And then in the 5th column here, you have your non-major governmental funds, which is basically the district's all the little funds combined into one. The general fund ended the year with fund balance of $1.65 million. The cafeteria fund had a small deficit of $21,000. The special school grants and programs fund did not have fund balance, and that is what we expect, as we either use or defer all the revenue that we receive each year. The capital reserve fund had a fund balance of $883,000, and then your non-major funds in aggregate had a total of $297,000. Giving the district a total of $2.8 million across all funds. So back to that emphasis matter paragraph in the opinion that I mentioned. If you guys could just flip to page 49, and there's a brief footnote in the table. I just wanted to highlight that real quickly. So in the prior year, the district had two funds known as agency funds, the Student Activities Funds and the Middlesex Consortium Fund. With the implementation of GASB number 84, the agency fund type no longer exists. So the Student Activity Fund is now a special revenue fund, which is included in the non-major funds that I talked about earlier. And that Middlesex Consortium Fund is now a new fund type called a custodial fund. And this table here kind of shows the changes that took place with the implementation of this standard. So back to the general fund a little bit. So like I said, the general fund had an ending fund balance of $1.66 million. $542,000 of this was assigned, meaning that it is allocated for encumbrances. Encumbrances that existed at the end of fiscal year 21 that are carried over into fiscal year 2022. The remainder of that fund balance is restricted. Page 50 is the general fund budgetary schedule. 50 is RSI 1, and that has to do with revenues. You see in the center of the page you have total revenues, which exceeded budget by $833,000. I would like to draw to your attention in other financing sources appropriation of fund balance. You see that the district used $2.1 million of existing fund balance to balance the 2021 budget. Moving on to the next page, you have your budgetary schedule for expenditures, which is RSI 2. You'll see in total, the district came in $336,000 under budget. A couple other financial highlights I would just like to draw to your attention. So if you flip a couple pages to RSI 3, 4, and 5, this has to do with the district's pension plan. I'm happy to report that the district now has a net pension asset. So if you look towards the bottom of the 2021 column, you see the district has a net pension asset of $453,000. This is compared to a net pension liability of $1.4 million in the prior year. You see the line below that, the district pension is actually 104% funded. This is not something that you typically see in municipalities. So it's something the district should be very proud of. So the district also has a healthcare plan, which is highlighted in RSI 7 on page 57, also known as the OPEB plan, other post-employment benefits. And we see that the district at the end of 2021 had a total OPEB liability of $4.46 million. Which decreased from 5.75 in the prior year. The district does not have a trust with assets in it to support this plan, so it's really just pay as you go. So that's kind of the high-level highlights for the financial statement. We also prepared, for the first time, a federal single audit. In prior years, the district had not been subject to a federal single audit because it did not receive enough funds where it needed to have one. But this year, with the increase in COVID funding, it went over that threshold, so we did prepare one for 2021. Similar to the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion on the major federal programs. We did not note any compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. The district had a total of $1.4 million in federal awards expended. And in the 2021 federal single audit, we specifically audited the child nutrition cluster and the coronavirus relief fund grants. Moving on to the state single audit. Similar to the federal single audit, we issued an unmodified opinion in the major state programs. We did not note any compliance findings or significant deficiencies in internal control. The district had a total of $402,000 in awards expended in 2021. And we audited the youth employment program. We audited the workforce aligning grant and the health food initiative grant. Does anyone have any questions in relation to single audits? There are just a couple more things that I am required to communicate with the board. The financial statements themselves, they include some significant estimates that I have to make you aware of. Of course, one is the net pension asset that I talked about, and the other is the total OPEB liability. The other big estimate is the useful life of the district's capital assets. We did not have any disagreements with management in performing the audit. Management did not consult with any other accountants. There were no difficulties in performing the audit, and there were no uncorrected misstatements. Finally, there were no independence issues. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Bobby Amartino's not here, so you're
I know.
free, man.
What's that?
Bobby Amartino's not here, so you're all right.
I had
You gonna come-
I had a question on page 7.
Sure.
And I asked him about it, is the operating grants and contributions. I understand part of that is the state pension contribution.
Yes.
But it didn't seem to make up the 12 million.
So, that's a great question. So, in that you have obviously the grants that we talked about in the federal and single audit, but you say that's about $2 million, so what's the rest? The rest is actually, has to do with the state teacher pension and OPEB plan. But if you look on RSI 1 and 2, there's the on behalf payment, which is significantly less than that amount.
Yeah.
On the budgetary basis, we're just reporting the on behalf amount, which is the amount contributed by the state on behalf of the district. The amount reported on page 7 on those full accrual basis of accounting is actually the revenue and expense that's allocated to the district above and beyond just the dollar amount that they contribute. So it's an actuarially determined amount. But that's what the majority of that number is. It's around $10 million.
Yeah, I just couldn't come up with the rest.
Yeah.
Because I'm an actuary.
Any other questions?
On the federal, for, the COVID-19 ESSER F K-12 fund, is that broken up? Is that from the third of the ESSER funds? There was 3 allocations.
So it's ESSER 1, 2, and 3. This is the initial, right, Kim? This is ESSER 1.
So there's actually coronavirus relief funds that's separate from
Yeah, I
ESSER
saw that
funds.
below,
That's what
yeah.
this is.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes. Are you asking about CRF?
No, I was asking, I just wanted to know what that K-12 fund, the line 84 on page 4.
Oh, COVID-19 ESSER F K-12 fund,
Yep.
26.3.
That's ESSER, yep.
Yeah, that would be the ESSER one then.
So,
Right, yeah.
so ESSER 2 and 3 are not in here?
Not yet,
They haven't
because
been
they're
spent yet.
next year.
Okay.
You'll see those next year.
And we have up until when to spend those 2?
2023 for ESSER 2 and 2024 for the ARP, which is the ESSER 3.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting so long.
No
You're very patient.
And I again just want to thank my office staff for what great work they do, and this reflects the great work that they do every day, so I want to thank them.
That's a lot.
I think Kim should be, I think Kim should be recognized to have not even a management letter in here with no corrections and clean audit, because that's very rare that you go through this kind of budget and this kind of activity without any issues.
Because she's amazing. And we're very lucky to have you. I say that with complete respect. I don't think we would have gotten through the last couple of years without you. I really, I'm serious about that. Like, and you answer all of our silly questions.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the audit as presented.
June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Just put the date on it. So that was made by Lindsay and seconded by Bob Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Good, that's passed. We also have another vote to set the high school graduation date to June 17th, 2022. I only have one question. If we have any more snow dates, this is set and it doesn't change.
Yeah, basically what I've learned with Matt's help, Matt Warren, I don't know if, he's still there, like, this is kind of new to Connecticut, it's kind of new to Connecticut, but what we've learned is anytime after the school year starts, we can set the graduation date, as long as at that time, there's 180 days programmed for those graduating seniors, and so We have to bump it to the 17th now, so we would ask you guys to approve that to lock it in. And then our intention would be in September, now that we know what the rule is and we understand it, we'll lock it in for 23. And unless we have hurricane days or something that we hope we don't have in the fall, then we could have 20 snow days and still
Don't jinx
keep.
it, that's been a thing.
I know. I've experienced them in Virginia too, so
You didn't
it's,
used to
yeah.
live here then, but it happened.
What day
Yeah.
of the week is that?
It's
Yeah.
Friday
Friday.
the 17th.
It's a Friday, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Friday, and we've got a lot of groups that have really been asking us to do this.
Yep.
And we'd like to be able to tell them, and families and everybody to just plan for this, so.
Is that technically, as of this day, the last day of school?
Yes, that would be the last day of school for
As of right
everybody.
now.
If we get more snow days, the seniors would not have to go beyond that day, and we
Yeah.
can still graduate, but other grade levels would have to go beyond that day or
And would
some
that
other day.
affect their taking tests, or do they not take tests? Do they take finals?
They do take finals. My understanding is a lot of them are exempt as seniors, is that, I'm looking at Craig and Matt.
I'm just wondering, and I'm not jinxing it, but if we get like another 5 snow days, I mean.
This is the recommendation of the principal,
It's cool.
and he has he'll
Good
make
job,
a
Matt.
plan to deal with that.
Figure it out. We trust you.
And it's my recommendation, so
Yeah, I
have
think
backup.
locking that into, in September, like, to give families out of
Yep.
state
Mhm.
this
Yep.
time would be really great. And I
Yep.
know that
That Friday
families
night
really
was great.
appreciate it.
I think the kids will really enjoy that.
Just hope for good weather.
So, a motion to set the high school graduation date to June 17th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Made by Lindsay and seconded by
I'll second it.
Bob Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The graduation date is set. Okay, we just might make it. It's 9:26. Item number 16 is public comment, and I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to speak. Sure, Carl. Oh, I don't know, is there anyone else?
They both already talked, so.
Yes,
Is there
they
anyone that
did.
hasn't talked that wants to say something? Okay.
Is there a
Forever the
limit on how many
gentleman,
times
Carl.
I can speak?
Yeah.
Hello again, my name's Nicole Arcolani, I'm a resident of Durham, I have 2 children in this school district. And I just wanted to reflect on 2 things. So earlier someone had mentioned that there's still the inability to comment publicly as a virtual option. So I think that really needs to be implemented. I serve on the EDI board, and that would bring a lot of equity to the community for people who can't get here. I myself had to leave and then come back. So it's just really unfortunate that that is not already in place, and I would request that the board look into that further. My second point is, I'm really excited to hear the discussion on the mask lifting. You know, the mask mandate was put in place based 2 years ago, based on science and for health purposes. They weren't meant to make us feel comfortable. They weren't meant to make us feel safe. They were put in place because scientifically that was the best decision at the time. Now, that scientifically, that has changed, and it sounds like even the Department of Health is behind it as well. So I don't really think, you know, the opposition that I heard was, there wasn't really a health reason as to why we shouldn't continue wearing these. It was more of anxiety and fear, which really isn't a reason for us to have these children continue wearing the masks if there's no health benefit to it. Yeah, like Superintendent said, you have to weigh the risk benefit, and at this point, there is a lot of social, emotional effects on the children. I know my son just entered kindergarten. He hasn't seen, this is his first year in the school district. He doesn't know what any of his classmates look like. He called one girl by the wrong name for the first half of the school year because he couldn't hear what her name was through the mask. So it's incredibly frustrating, and I think that it's detrimental to the education. And I think at this point, it really does need to be an option. I don't think that the board should say, you can't wear them. I think that should be up to the individual. And as far as the bullying aspect or singling people out, I think we need to be telling our children and our students that they should be respectful, independent thinkers. And if they really truly feel that they don't need to be wearing a mask, then they should stand behind that decision, and we should be educating them how to stand up for themselves respectfully, instead of just complying to something to make someone feel comfortable when there's no real science behind it. And I guess, thank you, Missy, for elaborating on your healthcare experience. My understanding is that you're a physical therapist, and so I just wanted to mention that because I think that the training involved is a little bit different.
All right, this
So-
is inappropriate, so you can move on.
No, I just wanted to, I asked you to be more specific, and I did ask if you have worked the entire time during the pandemic, because I've been advocating this, I've been advocating for this since the beginning of the pandemic.
I think we need to move on.
Totally
Thank you.
inappropriate.
Thank you very much.
I'm just pointing out that I asked for specifics, and it was very vague.
And it's none of your business.
Well,
We
but-
can talk
right.
offline, this is none of your business.
Okay.
I just think
Yeah,
that it's
but,
inappropriate that
please,
I'm not allowed
thank
to
you.
speak. Thank
Have a
you.
seat. Yeah, I think it was an individual choice, what they wanted, what people wanted to reveal. Chuck?
It's Carl.
Carl.
Carl. It starts with a C, maybe.
Yeah, I know
And
it's
that's
late,
what I'm afraid of for the kids.
but
right
It
there.
is late.
call it what you want. There's a saying that goes, you can take a pig and dress it up, put lipstick on it, but it's still a pig. So the field house, stadium project completion, storage building, it's an excess space is what I see. You're trying to get rid of excess space at Lyman. You got this facility here right adjacent to the track, but yet you want to build a building over there to put facilities in there that the same facilities are in this building right here that could be used. You're adding the additional cost of the building, you're adding additional maintenance that's gonna be every year that the budget's going up. And to even think about it this year with the other increases which are really necessary, I think is really, really pushing the envelope. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, Nick Fiala from Middlefield. I just wanted to share my thoughts on the superintendent's initial budget. My first reaction to the close to 4.9% increase is wow, probably like everybody else's. We haven't had that kind of increase in a long time, but we also haven't had inflation like this in likely twice as long, so it's not unexpected. As a reminder, and I know nobody likes to hear this, but it's reality, inflation is running at more than 7%. Everything is more expensive. So I'm not surprised that the school budget is as well, I guess. After really thinking about it, I should be delighted that the increase is far less than the rate of inflation. When I look at this year's budget, teachers' salaries have increased. I'm okay with that. Healthcare costs have increased. After a pandemic that has lasted 2 years, that's not really unexpected. I firmly believe that after what our teachers have gone through the past 2 years, they deserve the best health care the district can afford to give them, so I'm okay with that. I noticed that we are increasing a line item for general capital reserve account. That's long overdue. We need to stop making excuses and apologizing for our lack thereof or our rundown facilities. We need to stop fixing things with zip ties and duct tape. Support by the Board of Ed for student athletes is needed now during the budget cycle, not after they win a state championship. We have roughly $37 million school budget, and if spent wisely, we can do a lot of great things to make the students, teachers, parents, and taxpayers proud of the school system. So although none of us are excited about an increase in the school budget, I applaud the superintendent and the finance manager for submitting a reasonable budget given where we are in the economic cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't believe I got my full 3 minutes because I was interrupted, so I'd like to continue that unless there's someone else who would like to speak.
Not if you're gonna continue on the same line, no. I don't know how much time she had left, she was probably almost done.
She had
I think you're pretty much done.
30
Yeah.
seconds left, but if she's
Yeah,
gonna
you know
attack
what?
me, I don't think it's
You know
appropriate.
what, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Feel free to send me,
Would you
send
like
an
me to
email.
email you?
Yes, send an
Okay.
email.
I
Okay, for the
mean,
rest of
I
your
do think
comments.
it's appropriate for us to be able to ask the expertise and background
Okay,
of people
thank
making
you.
healthcare
Like I
decisions
said,
for our children.
Yes, please send me an email. Thank you, appreciate it.
family's background is.
Okay.
I'm asking her what her
Excuse me.
expertise
Motion to
is.
adjourn? Please, excuse me.
And I would just
Okay,
like to point
I
out-
would like to continue with our meeting
So,
and.
Lucy, should I
we're-
email you separately?
We're at the point, if you have any further comments, please email me.
And I would
Thank
just
you.
like to point out that.
I'd like to make a motion
No.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I did have one comment I wanted to make, and it was just despite our differences, I think we are really truly fortunate to be living in two very special communities. And I wanted to say that.